now it's working. Okay, I'll take that. Might need to bring the mic down.
Really?
Ooh, hey, hi phone. I know. Okay, so... So welcome to the new layout. It's real fancy. Let me fix my camera angle so you can see me. Just scream in the chat if you can't hear me. I have it open. So, welcome to the new layout. This is my visual novel layout. It's real fancy, isn't it? So if you're wondering what everything is, we'll go over it a little bit. You can't really see my cursor, which is an issue, but the banner above my head there is based on... Do I have the book with me? I might have the book in here, actually, come to think. Do I have it? Is it here? Yes. Well, I have one of the books here. This may not be the same exact book, but here's the book. It's called Michael Vey. It's not the visual novel we're playing, but I based it on the spine of this book. I scanned it in with something called Google Photo Scan, which I'm very fond of, actually. And the reason the letters look like that is because it's iridescent. I don't know if you can really tell. Yeah, you can tell. It's iridescent. So it's the banner above my head is based on Michael Vey, which was a great book, great series. I need to finish it at some point. Also, the book, there's an open book behind the gameplay. One sec. There's an open book behind the gameplay. That is an open book shot of, I don't have that book with me, but it's Aragon and Eldest. They crammed them into one, like, huge book. It's like the size of a dictionary. And I used that one because it was the only one that was open when I opened it. So I scanned that in with Google Photo Scan. You can't really see the text on the page. You can't really see the text on the page because it's really garbled because I scanned it wrong. But another personal favorite book of mine. So, and then we have a few new things to the stream. First of all, there was a follow that happened while I wasn't streaming there for a little bit. We'll repeat it. Hey! So I repeated it so it'd come up in this event list, and it shows off our fancy new cup. I have a bit cup now. I can't get bits, but I can get donations, and those will show up in the cup above. And anytime anyone follows, my face will show up in the cup. So to keep that in mind. That took me a little bit to set up the other day. But now that we've gotten everything out of the way, we can start This My Soul, which is a visual novel I found. Where is my mouse? Professionalism here, everyone. Where did I put my mouse? Oh, did I leave it downstairs, or did I knock it off the thing? I think I may have left it downstairs. I was working downstairs on this layout for most of the day yesterday, so... Ooh, I have a mouse right here. There we go. So, we can get past the start screen as soon as I plug in the mouse. Okay. So now that I have a mouse, can you guys see my pointer? Did I set it up for that way? I didn't. You cannot see my pointer. So, this is This My Soul. There's a comment there. It's called This My Soul. And it's a visual novel. It was written for NaNoRenO. Oh, I get why it's called that now. I didn't get it at first. It's called NaNoRenO. It's like NaNoRenO, but for RenPy visual novels. So everything is in the RenPy engine, so I can use one capture window to get all these, which is a neat little effect. But I'm finding all these online, and this one's the first one that I picked out of the NaNoRenO list. So we'll start the game. You wake to a tingling sensation all over your skin. Wait, something is wrong. There's liquid inside your mouth. In your lungs? Before the thought even fully forms, you're spitting and gagging, expelling the fluid in great, desperate heaves. Oh my, that is an interesting sound. Whatever it is, you eventually hack up the rest, not that it improves your situation much. Your surroundings are black as pitch, and you're too disoriented to figure out whether your eyes are open or not. Ooh, this one's a new tea, by the way. I should mention before we get started actually reading. This is a new tea that I got in my monthly tea box. It's called Gong Fu Honey, I think. It's pretty good, and you can steep it like 4 times, which I'm always into. Let's hope it's not too expensive, because I kind of like it, and I want more of it. Also, I'm sorry there's not chat on screen, but I just couldn't fit it into the layout. I'll try and move things around at some point. I just don't want to replace the bit cup. There's no clear sense of up or down, and when you try to move your limbs, they fail to respond. You trace the seam of your lips instinctively with your tongue, frustrated and forgetting to avoid the remnants of the fluid you coughed up earlier. It's disgusting. Despite it, you feel as if you haven't had anything to drink in years. You collect your strength just enough to... Before we cry out for help, we may be in a bad situation, so I'd say attempt to sit up and orientate yourself. Even though your limbs didn't respond, let's try and move. It takes a moment to mentally fortify yourself, and while you wait, you give your fingers an experimental twitch. You're laying on some kind of hard surface. Intrigued, you try to wiggle your legs out to the side experimentally, only to realize they won't budge. Your arms and legs are strapped in place by thick metal restraints. A table of some kind, then. Driven by this alarming discovery, you instinctively arch your back, trying to wriggle loose. To your mounting dismay, you've found that you've been shackled by the waist as well. What the hell is going on here? The darkness around you is absolute. You keep waiting for your eyes to adjust, but there are no additional details to take in. The chamber around you is small and a little cold. With effort, you lay back down and try to calm yourself, or, terrifying, you feel yourself slide into panic, tears welling in your eyes at the sensation of being trapped and helpless. I'd say small and a little cold is probably what I'd do. I wouldn't be like, oh god, I'm strapped to a table. I'd be like, okay, this is a serious situation. I need to use noggin. Before you can do anything else, a series of electronic bleeps signals that someone is standing directly outside your chamber. Light spills in from the top of it, just above your head. You get the fleeting impression that you've been contained in a cylindrical pod of some kind before the light blinds you. Oh hey, someone's in chat. Hey, it's Tate. Hey, how you doing? I'm doing pretty good. How are you, dude? We're reading books today. And for the foreseeable future, I have a list of like 5 or 6 books. Well, visual novels, but books. Please remain calm. I will release your restraints momentarily and increase the gravity by 12%. It's too quiet to fully make out, but the voice does sound male. Before your vision is even fully adjusted, you feel pressure being withdrawn from your limbs. With the softest whir of shifting gears, you are free. Cautiously, you open your watering eyes, but you still can't see anything beyond the halo of white light above. Your body floats gently downward as gravity increases, drifting until your toes touch on cool metal. Your game is still set to Zelda. Ooh, that's an issue. Let me fix that. I didn't think about that. Let me fix the fact that my game is set to Zelda, because we're not playing Skyward Sword today. We're reading books. I didn't think about that. Thanks for reminding me. We'll wait for this to load. No, I'm not streaming The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Question of the day, will the game come up? Hey, let me edit this. If you would. Thank you. this, my soul, is the game. I don't know that it came up. Search for community. I'd say chill stream, right? Actually, let's see if I can do like a visual novel. I don't know, I should have futzed with the community settings. Visual novels. Sure, we're in the visual novels. Sounds good to me. Please choose a supported game. Maybe it's just not supported. This. I don't think it's supported, so I might just have to say visual novel. Sure, we're in the visual novels. Sounds good. No, that's not a supported game. Maybe it's just VN. This. I don't know, man. NaNoRenO. I don't think it's supported, so I might just have to say visual novel. Okay, well, we'll just leave the game field blank, I guess, if that's an option. No, that's not a supported game. Actually, could I make it, oh wow, we're echoing really bad. Can I just say IRL? Is that a thing? Yeah, we'll just do IRL stream, because it's not in here. There we go. Well, I refreshed and came back to loud noise. Yeah, I kind of had an ad run before my thing. Youngtown. I love Youngtown's emotes, they're so clever. It makes me wish I could sub to Youngtown. As it is, you manage to get your own feet beneath you, before gravity increases again, giving you some time to remember how to support your own body weight. We're somewhere in space. I would assume we came out of some kind of cryogenic well, maybe not cryogenic, because you weren't cold. Some kind of long-term sleep coma storage thing. Please raise both arms up and prepare yourself to be lifted. You aren't sure what to expect, but immediately after carrying out their instructions, you are hauled out of your pod by a pair of strong masculine arms. Oh my. Your vision goes white once again, possibly in response to the more powerful shift in gravity. It will take me a moment to climb down. Please do not struggle. Please do not struggle. Please do not struggle.
Really?
Your rescuer's voice is a cool and personal monotone. What does PBG want? What's up? Oh, thank you, Tate, for retweeting the stream announcement. It doesn't take the return of your sight to finally recognize him for what he is. Oh, an android. I dig the, like, kind of Tron-esque lines. When he comes into focus, you see that he's a living artificial synthezoid. Model 51 to be exact. That's probably why it says last 51 on his body there. We're definitely on a space station. With both feet safely on the ground now, you're finally able to get a good look at him. He possesses the distinct facial features and the elite build of the last brand. They are only the laborer class models, to your knowledge, that have such elegant, handsome faces. That sentence reads strangely. Well, I would say maybe just only the laborer class models, to your knowledge, have such elegant, handsome faces. I shouldn't critique the game. Built to please is the company's motto. Okay, as far as I know, this game doesn't go anything beyond PG-13. It said it in the itch.io page, and if they are incorrect, I'm gonna be a little unhappy. That being said, he looks bizarrely colorless. Most androids are given natural coloring during production to prevent them from seeming too uncanny, but this one is pale as a sheet with icy blue eyes and lips to match. Must be a custom model. Good tea. We must ensure that your cognitive functions were not impaired during the accident, miss. Please answer the following questions to the best of your ability. Are you in any pain? No. You're fairly certain on this front at least, though the mention of an accident is a tad worrying. Please spell your first name. Simple enough. Alright, what do you think? Should we go with Glacier or should we leave the default name? Thoughts? We'll wait for stream delay here. This is really good tea and I may have to get more of it. I just really hope it's not expensive. It sounded like an expensive tea because you can re-steep it more than once and there's like a whole ceremonial process to it. You know, you have to actually like rinse the leaves before you steep them, and then it was such a short steep time that I was like I was a hair worried, you know? And I steeped it for 10 seconds more than it said on the packet. It said steep it for 30 seconds, I steeped it for 40 just in case. I think I kind of want to just leave it as Kindle because I just lost my shirt because naming the female protagonist Glacier is a little out of place. I mean, no, I won't do that. I don't know. Yeah, let's leave her name Kindle because I kind of like that name. He nods, acknowledging your answer. What was your occupation aboard the SS Spirit? Okay, so we can be a mechanical engineer, a journalist, a medical officer, an archivist, or the cartographer. I don't know. I feel like I would either be mechanical engineer or archivist, but let's do archivist. That sounds cool. Months upon months of combing through functional data on the many human travelers aboard the SS Spirit left you feeling more isolated and alone than it had any right to. Your memories are cloudy at best, and you wonder what happened to them all. I see. Very well then. Do you recall what happened when our ship was destroyed? You suck a surprised breath in through your teeth. The ship was destroyed? When our mission took us to the remains of the Nobu-Hiram space station to investigate what happened to them, our flight path brought us too close to the wreckage. Vaguely, you remember enlisting for the mission and hoping, along with everyone else, that the voyage would lead to some answers regarding the infamous spacecraft's destruction. Was the spacecraft infamous or its destruction infamous? Question of the day. Nearly 5,000 souls had been lost, and after the initial rescue crews had determined that there was no one left to save, your ship was dispatched to investigate the root cause of the tragedy. Only to fall victim to a similar incident, so it would seem anyway. The android hesitates in a very human way for a moment before continuing. I do not have sufficient data to say for certain, but it is my belief that our ship's hull was breached by some form of undetectable debris. This top one is my gut reaction. That shouldn't be possible. What kind of debris wouldn't show on our sensors? Or the other option is, it couldn't have been attacked, could it? I mean, we should have been able to detect anything threatening nearby. I'm not going to assume an attack because well, actually, maybe it would make sense to assume an attack because we also crashed at the same time as these people. What kind of debris wouldn't show on our sensors? As I have said, I do not have all facts, but I believe that the accident was most likely caused by simple human error, rather than any failing in our sensory equipment. In my time aboard the Spirit, I witnessed human crew members ignore standard safety protocol over 224 times over the course of 6 months. Many of these oversights occurred in the engineering and navigation departments, despite access to superior, fully functional equipment. So it stands to reason that an error was made by the mishandling or misinterpretation of data by a human. Oh no, we handle data. He explains his point of view without derision or disdain, but he doesn't exactly try to soften its examinant. But he doesn't exactly try to soften his examination of his former crew's failings either. Well, our former crew, not his former crew, but I guess it would be his former crew as well. Anyway. Not out of respect for your feelings, and certainly not out of respect for the dead. He's simply presenting his hypothesis in the most direct, logical manner he can, as he's most likely been programmed to do. It's hard not to take offense to the callous words, but you've handled plenty of data yourself, and to be perfectly honest, you've made mistakes. Mistakes that an android or robot in your place probably wouldn't have. And some of the data you read over included the documentation and records of other people's mistakes. Oh, accidentally, the whole thing. In fact, you were usually the person who first discovered them, which definitely led to some resentment from your crewmates. Oh boy. So if anyone on board had been in a position to back up this android's hypothesis, it was you. Well, prior to the accident, anyway. Regardless of how it happened, the result is that there was a breach. The impact completely destroyed one engine, and damaged another to the point that it became unstable. As you were the sole occupant of Flight Deck 9 apart from myself, I was unable to get anyone else to safety before the second engine imploded. His eyebrows furrowed just a fraction at what is clearly an unpleasant memory. On a human, the expression would look mildly perturbed, but it's actually pretty emotive for an android. We were just able to clear the blast radius in time, but the exploding drive core sent out a shockwave that rendered you unconscious. So were we in some kind of healing chamber at the open here? Or were we in a long-term stasis? I'm not quite sure. Try as you might, you really can't remember much of this. If you concentrate, you get the fleeting impression of being carried across a flight deck by someone with strong, solid arms, like our android friend here, but that's about it. There's no face to go along with the memory, no context, just the feeling of being carried and a strong sense of fear. In fact, you may have been suspicious of his story had he been a human. An android, however, would have no reason to lie, and certainly couldn't have actively endangered you. I managed to get you into this small maintenance craft just before the second engine's eruption caused the third and fourth drive cores to reach critical points as well. We escaped, and I believe that we were the only ones to do so. This announcement leaves you feeling numb with shock. We're the only ones to have survived this giant ship. And we don't remember anything despite being an archivist. All those people, gone in the span of minutes, and most of them had been people you knew. The LAS Model 51 finishes his report calmly. It is fortuitous that I already possessed knowledge of this shuttle in my database. I had just enough time to stabilize you before getting you into the cryogenic chamber for the beginning of our journey. So we were in a cryogenic chamber. Okay. So I've been asleep this whole time? How long have I been out? Or, alright, so we're on this ship. Now what? I doubt we have enough supplies to make it all the way back home. How far out from Earth are we? Did that get mentioned? I don't know. I kind of want to know how long we've been out, because that may give us an idea of how far we've traveled. Or how far we could have potentially traveled. You have been asleep for approximately 1 month and 16 days. He rattles off the number instantly, not having needed to calculate it in his head. Using this vessel's rudimentary navigational systems, I was able to chart a course for the nearest inhabited planet. Amalthea is only 2 months and 24 days from here. Do we have 2 months and 24 days of supplies? Unfortunately, your pod is an older model and not suitable for any kind of extended use. He shifts a bit, looking almost uncomfortable. In fact, we may have already stretched beyond its limited capabilities by keeping you in cryosleep as long as we did. There was no timer set when you entered, so I had to wake you manually to prevent any malfunctions or loss of life support. That, combined with your physical state before going in, is likely why your waking was so unpleasant for you. I will need to reconfigure it carefully if you are to use it for the remainder of the flight. Do I have to go back under? Coming out the first time was bad enough. Or, how are our rations? Do we, I suppose, have enough to last through the next 3 months if push comes to shove? Yeah, we're gonna ask about food, because I'd be like, okay, yeah, cryosleep is a thing. This craft is only stocked with enough emergency rations for 1 month, but as maintenance crews are often made up of 4 or 5 personnel, there should be more than enough for just you. However, there is still a risk that our flight path could be interrupted, or that we might not receive immediate assistance upon landing. Amalthea is a sparsely populated planet, due to its harsh environment, and the communication devices we have on board are somewhat outdated, to put it nicely. It would be best to mitigate those risks by placing you back into cryogenic sleep for at least part of the journey. You feel your face betray some of your anxiety at the thought of going back into the pod, and to your surprise, the android actually seems to pick up on it. He hesitates a moment before slowly adding, "If we ensure that your physical health is up to standard before putting you under again, your waking should not be nearly as traumatic next time. How do your limbs feel? Can you walk?" You test your legs out first. A little wobbly, but they work. Seeing that you're alright, he places one hand at your elbow to help lead you from the cryo chamber. "Allow me to show you around the craft, Miss Kindle." He leads you out into a long hall, a flight deck that appears to stretch the entire length of the craft. There are several doors along the hall, all closed, and the android points each one out to you in turn. This shuttle was used by the maintenance crews whenever they needed to operate independently of the main ship. For the convenience of the crew and to prevent them from wasting fuel flying back and forth to the main ship, it was outfitted with functional living quarters. They're quite minimal, however, as I'm sure you'll see. He points at the door at the end of the bridge toward what you guessed is the nose of the shuttle. The navigation room is down that way. He nods his head in the opposite direction at the door you just emerged from. The cryogenic chamber and the engine are both in there. This room and the navigation room are both sealed by a keypad that only a member of the crew may unlock. It would be pointless for you to try and enter. So we're going to try and enter. There is a blandness to his voice that manages to keep his statement from sounding too condescending. Still, you find yourself frowning a bit as he leads you further down the hall. Over here is the small fitness center we have on board for the crew to combat the effects of zero gravity whenever that becomes a concern. We have sufficient gravity controls engaged at the moment, but I believe we can still use the facilities to strengthen your body for transport back into the cryo chamber. Before you can even examine the room, he leads you to the next one. The muscles in your legs twinge a bit uncomfortably, and your companion takes notice, adjusting his hold on your elbow so he can support more of your weight. The food dispensary is here, and next to it the crew members' bunks. You find yourself breathing hard even though you've barely exerted yourself since waking up. It's a bit of a struggle to get inside the cabin, but the android compensates for your clumsiness, practically carrying you the remainder of the way to your bunk. Well, it isn't the fanciest of accommodations. You wouldn't even call it comfortable looking as the average escape pod. Oh, no, wait. You wouldn't even call it as comfortable looking as the average escape pod. But the feel of a relatively soft mattress beneath you is enough to make you want to drop off to sleep immediately. And, as if sensing your desire, the android obligingly bends to remove the boots from your feet. Funny, you hadn't noticed your clothing before this moment, but you really aren't wearing your usual uniform. Instead, you wear the human variant of the LAS model's maintenance uniform. Did you change my clothes? He nods, looking entirely unconcerned. Your clothing was soiled in our escape, and I determined you should be as clean as possible before entering the chamber. I bathed you as well. This piece of news is almost enough to have you jolting out of your bunk, despite your fatigue, but exhaustion creeps quickly over your body now that you're prone. What does it matter, your sleepy mind argues gently. He's just an android after all. You might have continued to debate with yourself longer, if not for your eyes slowly closing against your will. The last thing you're aware of before falling into a deep, dreamless slumber is the feel of the android dutifully draping a blanket over you. Okay. Your eyelids feel inordinately heavy the next time you try to open them. When you're finally able to see the room around you, the unfamiliar surroundings take you by surprise a bit. A sparsely decorated compartment on some kind of maintenance ship. The memories return quickly after that, making you wonder how long the android let you sleep. I'm curious, how's the game sound over there? Is it like way too loud? Is it good? It seems to be good on my end, just from looking at the equalizer bars, but let me know if something is afoot. Sharp pressure on your bladder makes itself known, and you rush as fast as you can, which admittedly isn't very fast, to the latrine area. It takes a moment to relieve yourself, almost as if your body has forgotten how, and once you've finished, it quickly becomes clear that your muscles are protesting any kind of movement at all. Oh, I keep getting random spurts of loud music. The game actually kind of has that on its own. I'll bring down the game audio a little bit in the mix to see if that fixes it. Yeah. Your legs tremble a bit as you stand. Showering jumps to the top of your agenda as you're not sure what you'll feasibly be able to do on your own in this condition. Painfully aware that you went nearly 2 months without bathing, you slowly peel away your borrowed uniform. It sticks to your skin in a most unpleasant manner. Eventually you manage to strip without collapsing and step into the cramped shower stall. Running water is definitely a luxury on board larger spacefaring vessels like the SS Spirit, so you aren't quite sure what to expect when you turn the old-fashioned nozzle in front of you. To your pleasant surprise, a spray of lukewarm water immediately rushes through the pipe. It would appear that this tiny maintenance vessel is old enough to not have been outfitted with sonic replacements yet. You adjust the temperature, letting the hot water soothe your aching muscles and wash away the grime. As you reach for the soap dispenser, your thoughts turn to... either we can think about the LAS model, what we'll do now, or the fate of the Spirit. It would make sense to ponder the fate of the Spirit. I mean, we're the sole survivor. It's hard to think about anything other than all of the hands that were lost aboard your former ship. So many lives gone because of a single stupid mistake? It would almost be a comfort to know you had been attacked, or that there had been some sort of sabotage, because then at least you wouldn't feel as if the entire fiasco could have been easily avoided. You shed a few tears for those crewmates you'd known by their first names. Raquette had been counting down the days until her daughter's graduation. Milo had been about to retire. Gray had been desperately trying to get you to promise to meet him for a drink as soon as y'all got back home. Such a waste. All of it. Mindful of wasting any excess water, you regretfully turn off the warm spray and wring out your hair. Turning around and blinking through the fog of moisture hanging in the air, you're shocked to see... What the... You jump and shriek a bit at the ghostly apparition you were definitely not expecting right outside your shower. Thankfully, it's only the android. He looks bemused at the violence of your reaction and holds out a bundle of cloth to you as a sort of peace offering. You are awake. That is good. That is good? Oh man, these are going to be some great dialogue options. That is good? That's what you say to a naked woman whose shower you interrupted? I don't even know what to call you. I'm naked. Get your breath back under control before accepting the clothes. I need to be incredulous here. I don't even know what to call you. It's impossible to cover all of your important bits using just your hands, and you glare furiously, hoping it'll disguise your rising flesh. His only reaction is to blink once slowly. Seriously, I don't know whether to laugh or punch you in the face. Turn around and let me dress, will you? He immediately turns to the side, looking a bit perplexed. You're grateful when the sound of his voice drowns out your fumbling attempts to slip into the garments without help. Your embarrassment is completely illogical. As I said 28 hours ago... Oh my. This is not going to go over well. As I said 28 hours ago, I have already seen and touched your nude form. Maybe that doesn't mean you get a free show, whatever. Yes, but that was different. I wasn't aware of it, so I got to skip the mortifying part. That was a life-or-death situation, you prick. You're right. God, I keep forgetting you're just an android. These are great dialogue options. I need to remember who wrote this, because I need to keep them in mind. This is great. Oh, androids and their lack of understanding of human indecency. Yes, that's why I find Kakasu so very interesting, I guess. That was I don't know. Yes, that was different. I got to skip the mortifying part. A sense of righteous indignation swells within you, even as you punch your arms through your sleeves with a burst of renewed energy. A reasonable person would assume they had some privacy, especially on aboard a ship like this with only one other occupant. Whether he's an android or not, he has no right to barge in on you the way he did. You are angry with me. He observes this in a somewhat less bland tone than usual. He sounds almost contrite. As I am a simple laborer-class android, my makers did not see fit to equip me with a social sensitivity chip. It was assumed that my contact with humans would be minimal. He's not quite giving you an excuse for his behavior, but you have to remind yourself that androids don't make excuses in order to discern the difference. He meets your gaze once you've finished dressing. I had the vessel's biostatus unit set to inform me the moment you regained consciousness. It alerted me that you awoke approximately 40 minutes ago. My apologies, but after 30 minutes went by, I grew concerned that you had injured yourself or were unable to move. I would not have presumed to barge into your private quarters under ordinary circumstances, but as you have activated my safety protocols, I felt I had no choice. The knowledge that he was under some sort of compulsion to make sure you were okay allows you to feel like you understand his reasoning a bit more. I came to bring you clean clothing and assist you at the cafeteria, should you require sustenance. Your stomach growls loudly. I shouldn't try to add words, it doesn't go well. Your stomach growls loudly the moment you start thinking about food, and you wince. Very timely. He nods once, as though satisfied. Allow me, miss. Without invitation or prodding, he gently takes hold of your arm and leads you out of the latrine area. You pass through your cabin, leaning more on him than you intend to, and he adjusts his grip so that he can support you without hurting your sore muscles. You step out into the hall briefly before he takes you through the door right next to yours. The food dispensary looks sparse and a bit cold. There are empty chairs, a table, and the actual dispensing apparatus with a nearby waste chute. Hang on, let me see if I can turn the music down in the game. Because it seems like it's just really... It seems a little loud. I want to turn the music down in the game and bring the desktop audio back up. There we go. That seems fine. Okay, let's go back to the game. The food... Yeah, we already read that. It's a place meant for chatter and camaraderie. Without them, it looks utterly cheerless. Not at all the type of place one would seek out to enjoy a meal in. Please sit, and I shall procure a meal for you. It's on the tip of your tongue to insist that his help isn't necessary, but your legs wobble and they practically collapse underneath you the instant you hover over the closest available seat. You doubt you'll be able to get them to move again anytime soon. The LAS model punches in a few commands on the console, and soon enough the dispensary spits out a meal on a cardboard tray, ready for your consumption. Is this like a Soylent-style meal, or is it like 3D printed food? Even from across the room, it doesn't look particularly appetizing. So 3D printed food. After ordering you a mineral and electrolyte enhanced beverage, the android makes his way back over to you, meal in hand. He arranges the items neatly in front of you. Oh, I gotta sneeze, but I can't sneeze. You should find that I've optimized the available menu options to provide you the most balanced diet possible. There are indeed a variety of vegetables, carbohydrates, and some form of off-white cube that you assume is your protein. So, tofu? He gives you a mildly encouraging look, like a mother trying to coerce a finicky toddler into trying something for the first time. No social skills, chimp, huh? Maybe you should just feed me. I respond well to airplane noises. Thank you, Model 51. Om nom nom. This looks like someone ate it already. Do I really have to? I love that I respond well to airplane noises, and I want to see what he thinks of this. Androids never roll their eyes, but you swear that your words cause the corner of his to twitch, almost as if he knows the gesture is possible. Instead, he speaks in a tone that is softly reprimanding. You are being childish. Your body will continue to rest in long, uninterrupted periods until you get your strength back. As such, it is vital that you get as many nutrients while you can while you're awake. You wrinkle your nose a bit subconsciously. Seeing it, he adds firmly, you must eat this. I cannot use an IV drip to supplement your nutritional intake without monitoring you the whole time you sleep. If anything happens to interfere with our flight path while I am... Alright, I get it. I was just trying to make a joke. Grudgingly, you take a bite. The good news is that the food only tastes about half as bad as it looks. It's very, very bland, but not so much so that the flavor is bad, per se. The bad news is that the complete lack of taste leads one to contemplate the texture with new focus, and it is odd, to put it nicely. The off-white thing in particular has an unpleasant rubbery feel to it. You gag despite your best efforts to keep it down. Seeing that you're having trouble, the LAS model helpfully scoots your beverage closer. You need something to take your mind off the horrid mass of half-chewed protein in your mouth. I want to talk to this android more because his conversations amuse me quite a bit. So we'll start up a conversation. You cast about for a topic to discuss when your eyes suddenly land on the model, make, and number emblazoned over his left pectoral. This is going to be a what do I call you moment, isn't it? So, you're a living artificial synthezoid, huh? That must be... nice? You hide a grimace at your very awkward-sounding question. It was the first thing you could think of. Thankfully, the LAS model doesn't seem inclined to tease or give you a hard time about it. He simply furrows his brow a bit in confusion. I do not know another way to be, so I'm unequipped to... I should have been more clear. You cut across him a little bit more rudely than you intend, as the last bite of dehydrated vegetable quiche nearly chips your front tooth. Oh my. I meant to imply that you should tell me more about yourself. What's your story? My story? You nod, chewing with difficulty. I do not know what you mean. I doubt you wish me to recount my entire history from the first time I was commissioned to the time I served aboard the Spirit. And I'm afraid I'm not sure which details you wish to know. Your eyes dart back up to the mark on his chest, and you gesture slightly with your fork. I don't have a fork, and I left my spork that I use for tea downstairs, so... Do you have a name? Or a number? How do people usually distinguish you from the other Model 51s? He meets your gaze and holds it steadily for a moment, as though thinking, before responding. Most LAS models have serial numbers that are used to tell them apart. His hesitation is slight at best, but you're rather desperate to concentrate on anything other than what's in your mouth. So you catch it. I do not have such a number. My creator simply called me Silas. I see what he did there. If you swap the 51 in front of the loss, it looks like Silas. Why don't you have a serial number? Maybe he doesn't have a serial number because that's why he's so pale. I want to know more why he has a serial number rather than going, oh, your name's clever. You appear to be nearly finished with your meal, miss. You recognize the clear signs of shutting down a discussion, though you're baffled as to the cause. Okay, backstory later, I guess. Anytime you attempt to speak after this, he just encourages you to take another bite or take another drink from your glass until the food is nearly gone. Sorry if you don't like those mouth sounds, but I'm enjoying this tea. Excellent. If you are ready, we should proceed to the fitness center. With the unfamiliarity of a full belly wearing you down, you have to rely on Silas more than ever. Silas? I was saying Silas because it's kind of like silicon. It could go either way. Especially since you feel your eyelids beginning to droop. Oh no, food coma. He leads you slowly toward the fitness center, accommodating your tired stride, but talking loud enough to keep you semi-alert, at least. Please stay awake a little longer, Miss Kendall. I must conduct a short wellness exam on you before I can let you sleep again. The fitness center is tiny, but it does have a fully stocked first aid station and a handful of emergency supplies, like the rudimentary stretcher you can see stashed near the bottom. We can't see it. I really like the way this game looks, and I like the way it reads too already, and we're not even an hour in. That's probably why he brought you here, in case you collapse. Silas helps you straddle a nearby weightlifting bench and face him as he does the same thing in front of you. I will be checking your pupils now. He flicks his wrist oddly, and a flashlight attachment extends from the back of his hand. Oh, so it'd be more of a whoosh than a whoosh. You imagine that this was a feature added to a system in maintenance work, and his face leans close to yours as he shines the light briefly into each of your eyes, checking for appropriate levels of dilation. Response is normal. I'll be checking your heart rate next. My watch is dead, or actually, my watch is dead, but my phone can check my heart rate. Let's check my heart rate just for the fun of it, even though he's probably going to give us a reading of some kind in the game. Just for the fun of it, let's check my heart rate. Let's see here. Fit. We'll, yeah, okay, I know. Heart rate. I know there's a way to do heart rate in Google Fit. Maybe not. I know there's a way to do heart rate on this phone. I guess we'll just go to the default app. Yes, I know. I've never opened this default app. Okay, so let's measure our heart rate and see what we get. Ooh. Roughly 80 beats per minute. That's a little high for a resting heart rate, but I need to get back in shape anyway. Actually, I want to check my blood oxygenation as well while I have the thing open. Just because I'm curious. The pulse ox says I've got around 96% oxygenation at 77 beats per minute, so that's a little better than the 80 it estimated for us. Anyway. It'd be really interesting if I could rig my watch to show heart rate during like a horror game. He places two of his fingertips delicately against the pulse point on the side of your neck, like so. To do this, he actually has to slip his fingers beneath the high collar of your top, an action that feels strangely intimate despite his cool demeanor. A tiny spark of static electricity prickles your bare skin where he touches it, and you jump slightly in surprise. Ah, forgive me. I failed to adjust my electric conduits in time. Hearing his voice from this close and seeing his lips move causes you to realize. Oh no. Oh no. There are 3 options here, and I don't know how I feel about them. We can either be attracted to the android, realize that we've been in cryosleep for at least a month or so, or realize that we are very sleepy. I'm going to go very sleepy because it seems like the most safe for work route. Stay awake just a bit longer, please, miss. Despite his intermittent prodding, you barely make it through the rest of his tests without passing out. Before long, Silas calls the examination to an end. With his assistance, you successfully make it into a standing position after a couple of failed tries. That is as far as you make it, however, as any attempt to move your legs is met with resistance at best from your tired muscles. Shall I help you to your room, miss? Yes, please. No, thanks, but I need to do this on my own. Help me? How about you carry me? Oh, I feel so faint. Let's be stubborn. He nods graciously. Nods graciously. Helps when I can speak English. Very well. If you change your mind, I should be able to hear your call from anywhere on the vessel. That shouldn't be necessary, but thanks again. You are welcome. He stays behind to observe you as you struggle in placing one foot in front of the other. The way he's watching you makes it all the more important not to fail, after insisting you didn't need his help. It's a painful process, and you have to rest a few times, but eventually you make it out into the hall. This is apparently all the reassurance Silas needs, and he exits the fitness center behind you, turning the opposite direction and disappearing into the navigation room. You gingerly make your way the remaining 20 feet into your cabin and finally allow yourself to collapse on your bunk with a sigh. Oh, not a hiccup, a sigh. You're so exhausted by even this level of physical activity. Oh, jeez. This level of physical activity that it's hard to imagine yourself back in a normal shape at any time soon. I started running this morning and I did not get very far. And I'm a little disappointed because I used to be able to run like quite a ways, and I only got like barely a mile this morning. Little disappointing, but I mean it's a starting point. Fatigue creeps over you like a drug and you succumb to it completely. You are asleep before you can form another coherent thought. The next time you wake, you feel as though you were run over by a cargo freighter. We may have overexerted a bit. You can't move, your arms and legs having seized up at some point while you slept. Groaning, you realize that even the simple task of getting up and walking yesterday had been too much for you. You lie there for a good couple of minutes, gathering your will. Then with a grunt of effort, you manage to roll over and flop on the ground. I don't know if you could hear that thud, but thud. The distance isn't too far, and self-preservation instincts prevent you from bashing your nose on the floor, but the situation is still pretty far from ideal. You're able to move your neck stiffly, just enough to see the digital readout next to your door. Only 21 hours of sleep this time. You've managed to bring your sleep cycle down to under a day, a slight improvement. After a few experimental stretches, you determine that while your legs are almost completely unresponsive, you have a limited range of motion in your arms, at least. You debate on whether or not you can make it to the intercom console next to the door. Silas might be by to check on you shortly, but he might also be hesitant after the shower mishap from yesterday. You do need to visit the latrine rather badly, however. Struggle for the intercom, you either can't wait, or lie still. Getting out of bed was a stupid idea and you could have injured yourself. Well, let's struggle because I don't want to pee all over myself. Mind made up, you gather your arms in close and begin a painful sort of low crawl over to the opposite side of the room. The distance seems ridiculously far. You inch across the floor like some kind of large, misshapen caterpillar, stopping once for a breath in the center of the room. Just as you make it to the wall and pause to contemplate how you're going to stand yourself up, the door opens to reveal your android companion. You freeze. He freezes. We're both frozen. And then things happen. His cool gaze takes in your position on the ground, arms still outstretched uselessly toward the intercom, and you wonder what on Almathea he must be thinking right now. Almathea is the planet we're headed for, okay. I just need to remember. You appear to have regressed somewhat, Miss Kendall. This is possibly the understatement of the millennium. May I offer my assistance? You aren't really in a position to refuse, so the android helps guide you through a few very painful stretches that would have been impossible to manage on your own. You should be able to walk off the remaining stiffness. You can't help it. The thought of walking on your own has you shooting him a panicked look. He tilts his head to the side quizzically. I shall help you get to the food dispensary? Oddly, he phrases his statement like a question, holding his hand out to your slumped form as if he's asking for your permission. Normally, he just does whatever he deems necessary for your health, but you suppose that since you could make it on your own, he's doing you the courtesy of presenting the choice. Still, it seems an odd thing for him to do all of a sudden. Perhaps he's learning? Maybe that's why he doesn't have a serial number. Well, since you're offering, or I think I should be able to make it on my own, thanks. Let's be stubborn. Stubborn boys. Stubborn gals, I guess? You'd rather not become too reliant on Silas to help you everywhere. If he suggested you could walk on your own, then you figure it's safe enough to try stretching your own legs. The problem of your immobility is likelier to be solved by pushing yourself rather than using him as a convenient crush anyway. Oh, okay. Well, thanks for dropping by, dude. Catch you later, man. Let's make sure I did read the rest of that. Okay. Before you do anything else, you conduct yourself on legs about as shaky as a newborn foal's to the latrine. You slant a forbidding glare in Silas's direction when he attempts to join you. Your body language suggests you would not appreciate my assistance in this endeavor. Very much so. I thought you didn't come equipped with a social sensitivity chip. He nods, looking a bit disconcerted. I suppose my AI is enabling me to adapt to your human methods of communicating non-verbally. He pauses, and his voice takes on a very out-of-character musing quality, almost as if he's trying to convince himself as well as you. It is important that we understand each other in this environment, after all. You puzzle over this for a moment, but nature's call is too insistent to ignore any longer. Once you've finished and washed up a bit, you turn your steps back out toward the cabin, where Silas is still waiting for you. He is respecting your wish to get around without help, but he clearly intends to be nearby in case something goes wrong. The two of you make your way slowly toward the food dispensary. Your body experiences a last rush of energy at the prospect of sitting down, and you manage to stumble your way to the nearest seat, collapsing into it somewhat gracelessly. Even so, you can't help feeling proud of the accomplishment. Silas heads for the dispensary console without being told, clearly intending to select your meal before you can mount any sort of protest. When he returns, he carries a tray loaded up with foodstuffs that, while not any more appealing than what you ate before, at least look a little different. Your stomach is growling audibly by this point, so you dive into your meal with some gusto. You figure if you can just shovel everything in quickly enough, you might not have to taste it at all. Silas watches you placidly as you enact your plan. In fact, it's a little unnerving to be observed so closely when you aren't exactly using your best table manners. A bit discomfited, we can either ignore him or ask him about his work aboard the Spirit. Backstory, please. So, Silas, I'm trying to figure out how I never noticed you before. I mean, we're both on the Spirit, and it didn't seem like a very big ship. The statement sounds very blunt, even to your own ears, and you hurriedly take a forkful of meat product. Spending so much time by yourself as an archivist has obviously made your interpersonal conversation skills a little rusty. Hopefully your companion is android enough not to notice. I mean, it was always my job to keep track of data and personnel. I definitely can't remember every name and face I ever saw across my desk, but I'm pretty sure a color that's LAS model would have stood out, at least. I know you're laborer class, but only because you told me. What did you do all day? He nods politely in spite of your somewhat rambling journey to asking a simple question. I worked alongside several human and android crew members, A Boyd. I can't believe I see a Boyd out the window. I worked alongside several human and android crew members aboard this maintenance vessel. I was programmed to perform several simple job functions, including payload and external mechanics. On many smaller work crews, there is a single android on staff to take care of more dangerous responsibilities or jobs that require careful, precise execution. You nod, having heard this type of thing went on. Actually, it was often said that these androids were taken advantage of shamelessly and used to perform as many tasks as possible, no matter how menial, to lessen the workload for the human crew members. If Silas was used in this way, he doesn't mention it, instead inspecting how full your tray still is. You should really focus on consuming as much as you can, Miss Kendall. Hey, wait a minute. Miss Kendall, we're reading books. Miss Kendall. Oh, I think I'm hilarious, don't worry. Your caloric intake is of vital importance if we are to get you back into satisfactory physical health. The conversation is apparently over. Any attempts to talk to him further are once again met with polite redirections toward getting you to eat more instead. Once you're finished eating, he cleans up the same way he did before and conducts you smoothly over to the fitness center. Inside the room, he hesitates, turning to face you. We should begin with a thorough evaluation. I will need you to go through a series of motions that I can determine your current level of strength, flexibility, and coordination. It would likely be very tiring for you, and you may be alarmed by how quickly the fatigue sets in. Do not be. Hey, Dr. Wynn, we're going a little sharp. How do we not... Can you give us some help with that? Well, don't. So, story. My choir director has a very dry sense of humor every now and again, and he's a great director, but sometimes, like, the altos especially, because they have a hard part all the time, because people just give altos the hard part for some reason. And the altos will be like, hey, we can't get this. We're doing this thing. And immediately Dr. Wynn would just deadpan. Then don't. And it was funny a couple times, but sometimes we're like, actually, we're like really into it when we're rehearsing and it doesn't go well. Also, another thing. Hang on, there's a thing on my floor that's bothering me and I need to fix it. There we go. That's that. Sorry, that was driving me nuts. There was a box on the floor that's like coming apart and it's making me a crazy person. Anyway, so, what was I saying? Oh yeah, choir. So, also Dr. Wint just loves to make just terrible puns. And I love them. But I let out this just absolutely absurd fake laugh one time. And I'm afraid to do it on camera because it might peak the mic, but oh well, here we go. I'm just like, huh! One time when he made a really terrible joke. And that's just become a meme. Like, other people have started doing it, and I really hope someone does it, like, after I leave next year. Just Dr. Wynn will make a really terrible joke, and someone will just be like, huh! It would be great. Now I'm curious, how much did that peak the audio? Like, dang it. Silas doesn't seem all too comfortable trying to offer you comfort. He clasps his hand behind his back firmly, as if he's afraid you might ask for, like, a hug or something. Oh, poor socially awkward android. Let me love him. His tone also manages to sound even more dry and clinical than usual. Your awakening from cryosleep was unfortunately abrupt due to the fact that we've used the pod under emergency conditions. Your brain is still fighting the effects. This tea is going to be cold and it's probably not going to be that good. Here we go. Only sort of right. It was room temperature, but it was also still pretty good. That's the sign of a good tea. It still maintains its fairly goodness. Like the goodness of the tea declines much slower in relativeness to the temperature than with a cheap tea. I don't know, and like I also just take my tea straight, so I'm not one for bitter tea because I don't put anything in it, you know. So I'm always on the lookout for good teas. You know, send me links to teas that you thought were good. Maybe I don't know if the YouTube comment section will allow links. Actually, you can send them to my personal, or not my personal email, my channel email, glaciernester@gmail.com. I check it every now and again. Haven't gotten a whole lot to it yet, but it exists. Send me email. Are you a game developer and you want me to do a Frozen Tundra Vines or a stream on a game? Be like, hey, here's this game. If you can run it, please do the thing. In a normal awakening, you would be walking with only minimal stiffness by now, but as it is, you will likely find yourself sleeping quite a bit until your body remembers how to expend energy efficiently. Taking one of your hands in each of his, Silas leads you to the open area in the center of the room. He drops his gentle grip as soon as you are situated. Oop, no, didn't mean to click there. And turns to retrieve a simple folding chair from the side of the room. When he sets it up behind you and gestures for you to sit, you do so gladly. Hang on a moment, I need to do a thing. I forgot to add something to the layout. So, oops. Properties. I forgot to add a BRB to the layout, and we're definitely going to need that at some point. Actually, probably pretty soon here, because I have to pee. Okay, yeah, that's the BRB, so if we just... I should make it like a different themed BRB to have, not be... So to fit the book theme. So we'll get to a stopping point, and then I'll take a BRB, and I'll go to the bathroom, and then I'll be back. Silas moves in front of you, kneeling, and takes one of your feet in his hand. He then starts to remove the boot. It feels startlingly intimate, like a man pampering his lover after a hard day of work. Oh my, we're gonna date the robot, aren't we? Once it's off, he cradles the heel of your foot in his hand, and you're suddenly struck with how long his fingers are. They curve delicately up and around the side of your ankle. They curve delicately up and around the side of your ankle, warm as a human's, but jet black in color. For your first exercise, you will lift your heel off my hand by 2 inches and hold in the air above as long as you feel comfortable. Begin. Taken aback by a straightforward approach, you comply without bracing yourself. It's not at all comfortable, and your leg immediately starts trembling. You try to use your core muscles to no avail, and before even 3 seconds have gone by, you're dropping your heel back into Silas's hand. Wow, we've a lot of muscle atrophy in that cryo sleep. Oh my. Or maybe it's just a side effect of the actual coming out of the cryo sleep too sharply, like the cold has affected our muscles. It's probably a little bit of both, honestly. The relief is immediate and you audibly sigh. A human therapist might have expressed disappointment or encouragement over your less than impressive first attempt, but thankfully the android keeps his thoughts to himself. He calmly switches feet, removing your opposite boot. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna be right back, and then we'll come back with the decision. So, BRB. I will be back soon enough. Turn off the BRB. I need to design a book-themed BRB. Where's my water? Sorry, I just thought about that. So we have 3 options here. We can say nothing. We can probably jokingly be all like, is there any chance we're going to get foot rub after this violation is over? Or we can tell them we can do that ourselves. Let's not say anything. Repeating the exercise on the other leg, you and Silas work through your various muscle groups one after the other. At the end, he takes your heart rate and checks your blood pressure. Let's take our heart rate again. It's probably going to be a little elevated because I ran up and down stairs just a little bit ago. But let's take it anyway. Measure our heart rate. Let's go. Oh, 79 beats per minute. That's not bad. You wanna know where the power's at? It's in the middle of a power nap. Sorry, I'm fixing a setting because it's driving me nuts. We can keep playing while I fix the setting, I'd say. We will need to adjust your diet once again. You're too out of breath to argue or ask any questions. It seems like every muscle in your body is well on your way to seizing up. As if sensing this, and it wouldn't surprise you to find out he actually can sense it somehow, given he can sense our level of consciousness, as noted earlier, Silas swiftly guides you through a series of cool-down stretches. You feel a bit silly doing a full cool-down routine when you know you didn't do anything more difficult than lifting your legs, but Silas insists that this, more than anything, will help with the stiffness and cramps. When it's over, you wobble back to the chair and plop down while Silas fetches you some water to drink with your first dose of pain meds. I would like to check your heart and respiratory rates one last time before you return to your cabin, miss. It should only take a moment. You sway in your seat slightly, trying to keep control over your tired body and not quite succeeding. In fact, the longer you sit, the more your posture slumps against your will. Excellent. We are finished for the day. He extends a courteous hand to help you up, but you can only take it with a distressing amount of effort. When he attempts to get you to stand, it becomes clear that your legs will not be moving at all for the rest of the day. They are, quite simply, done. His facial expression shifts, and he looks at you with apologetic eyes. I'm afraid there is no choice, Miss Kindle. Oh no, he's going to carry us. Oh, I am sorry, but I will have to carry you now. With only that to serve as a warning, the android smoothly bends over and lifts you without missing a beat. His arms support you in a position that you are fairly sure only a very, very strong human man would be able to manage. One of them rests in the center of your back between the shoulder blades so that you can remain upright with minimal effort on your part. The other is beneath the bend of your knees, and once again you find yourself noticing those long fingers of his. Aw, that's cute. Look at that, that's real cute. He carries you bridal style down the hall, taking care not to jostle you too much or bump into doorways. Look at the little blushes. That's adorable. Hoping to support at least a tiny bit of your own weight, you're able to get your arms around his neck with some effort. Because you are already looking his way, you're able to catch the abrupt shift of his gaze toward yours. His steps were unhurried to begin with, but it seems like they slow down even... I don't know, PPG, really? I was reading something, dude. Really should just mute my phone. I'm gonna do that so we don't have any more PPG saying really. Because we're not playing Asagao today. We could switch to Asagao at some point, but I'm liking the way this is building. His steps were unhurried to begin with, but it seems like they slow down even further at your touch. You feel his shoulders tense slightly. Is he uncomfortable? Sorry, I just thought this would be more comfortable. Are you alright? You're not malfunctioning, are you? Let's just ask him if he's alright, because implying he's malfunctioning may, wound his honor or something. Turning his attention back to the door of your cabin, which you have just reached, Silas opens it before deigning to answer. Oh my. I am fine. Oh, he's upset. I am fine. He sounds rather surly all of a sudden and offers no explanation for his reaction. Once inside your room, Silas makes straight for the bunk you've been using and halts. I admit I do not know the protocol for this situation. Please instruct me on how you would like to proceed. Proceed to bed? Yes. Of all the things to get hung up on. Those quirky robots, am I right? The android feels self-conscious about putting you in a bed. It sounds ridiculous, and you know you'd be laughing if you weren't just absolutely exhausted. Just dump me here. I'm so tired I don't even care. You lay me under the covers and climb it. Oh, that sounds lewd. That sounds lewd. Better not pick the lewd. Just put me under the covers if you can, please. I appreciate the help. I'm gonna go off. Off stream. I'm gonna start a different playthrough and just pick all the really lewd options to see what happens. Because I can't play them on. I'm not gonna play them on stream. Family friendliness and all that. Silas's meticulous attention to detail shines through even here as he lays you carefully on the bunk, with your pillars and covos. I even stumbled in trying to make the joke there, as he lays you carefully on the bunk with your pillow and covers arranged just so. Just so. Belatedly, you untangled your arms from his shoulders, allowing him to step back and neatly tuck your blanket around you. That's a really small version of probably what happened. Lifting your arms and flopping back on your pillow caused the stray hairs around your face to jump in front of your eyes. An irritated sigh blows out from between your lips as you tiredly contemplate the wayward strands. To your surprise, Silas reaches over and softly combs your bangs back with his fingers. Oh, that's very human of you. Your wide eyes jump to his, but his placid expression, it really doesn't reveal much, especially when I click past that dialogue. Have a good night, miss. His head bows briefly before he turns and lets himself out of the room. You try to stay awake a bit longer to contemplate Silas and the strange energy that seems to be developing between the two of you, but the demands of your battered muscles and medication-numbed brain win out in the end. You fall asleep quickly. You try to open your eyes, but it feels like there's something thick and syrupy gluing them together, so you stop. Sliding back into unconsciousness is frighteningly easy. Something thick and syrupy gluing our eyes shut? Maybe we're back in the cryo chamber? I wouldn't think so after the state we've been in from last time. Time goes by. When you rouse yourself from the slumber the second time, your lids will only lift high enough for you to peek out at the silent room around you. Falling back to sleep once again is incredibly tempting. You're warm and comfy enough, despite the fact that you really like to turn on your side. Movement. Wait, no, we saw movement. Movement out of the corner of your eye instantly draws your attention. Oh my. You want to move your head, but it feels inordinately heavy. Everything feels heavy. You open your mouth to question the presence in your room, but even that reflex is sluggish, and fear rises within you at your helplessness. The noise that issues from your throat sounds groggy and weak, so it'd be more like except weaker. You're awake. You recognize that voice and relax, immediately recalling where you are. It's only Silas. The android hurries to your bedside, offering the glass of water that's in his hand. Of course you are awake. It is illogical of me to state the obvious. My apologies. You try to focus your bleary wits. You try to focus your bleary wits on what your companion is saying, but he's speaking much faster than he usually does. So it'd be more of course you're awake. It's illogical of me to state the obvious. My apologies. I grew concerned when you stepped through the last 24-hour cycle. I decided to abandon my post in the navigation room when you continued to sleep upwards of 30. He admits to leaving his post with slightly downcast eyes, as if he's still halfway ashamed of himself for neglecting his duties. You imagine that it's a very serious thing for an android to confess. You nearly open your mouth to say something about it before you remember you haven't had a drink yet and you still feel as though you've swallowed sandpaper. Hearing you attempt to speak, Silas moves quickly to support your head, helping you to sip water from the glass in tiny slow sips. Tiny slow sips. Sitting up at even a slight incline causes your spine to tingle with discomfort. It doesn't hurt per se, but you have no doubt that it'll change the minute you try to exert yourself any further. Drinking helps soothe away the hoarseness in your throat, and when you speak it's only a little more gravelly than usual. What happened? Silas doesn't answer for a long moment. In fact, you start to suspect he won't answer your question at all. He seems completely absorbed in the task of assisting you to drink water. Once you've fully drained the glass, he finally speaks in a low, nearly inaudible tone. It would seem that the effects of the pain medication I gave you had a much stronger reaction on your body than anticipated, due to the effects of cryo sleep. I thought I had taken the possibility of such a reaction into account, but He trails off, closing his eyes. Then in a startling show of vulnerability, he lifts a hand to his forehead, cradling it as if to ward away a headache. You stare. The gesture is so human and vastly expressive, especially for him, that you can't help but worry that something's very wrong with his android. He finishes his sentence and the raw, lost quality of his voice only heightens his concern. I miscalculated. Hey, it's all right. See, I'm fine. Mistakes happen. Well, yes, but I'm okay now, so no lasting harm done, right? I think we may need to consider the possibility that you've been compromised, Silas. No, that's mean. I don't want to say that. This is what I'd say. This top one is what I'd say. This middle one seems like something that the character would say. I'm gonna say the middle one. Your comforting words only serve to make his shoulders tense even further. His other hand rises to join the first, and soon he's pressing his fingers hard to each temple, almost as if he wishes he could probe inside himself. Staring straight ahead, he answers again in that same strained voice from earlier. You're being kind. It's clear he intends this to be interpreted as a simple statement of fact and not a compliment. My mistake could have ended your life. He abruptly lifts his head, fastening the entirety of his cold, blue-eyed gaze on you. You cannot comprehend even the magnitude. Dang it. Let's try that again. You cannot comprehend the magnitude of such a failing. I would decommission myself this instant if I had any other means. I would decommission myself this instant if you had any other means to survive this journey without me. Whoa, Silas, I'm not saying you didn't mess up, but decommissioning yourself is way too much. I really think you're making a bigger deal out of this than it needs to be. Do you think something is wrong with you then? Yeah, I'm gonna go with it. Whoa, step back a little bit here, Silas. His eyes dart back and forth between yours, searching for something. Truth, perhaps? Like I said, I'm fine. Don't worry. But if it makes you feel better, just do what humans do. Learn from your mistakes. Real simple. I can't ask any more from you than that. He frowns a bit, but you are at least pleased to see that the doubt and self-recrimination are ebbing. His head shakes a bit in disagreement. That is incorrect. You can always ask more of me, of any android. Whatever I do or say in the future, remember that much, at least. There's not much you can say to argue, and you sense that now would be a bad time to yawn in the middle of that sentence. Good job. There's not much you can do to say to argue, there's not much you can say to argue, and you sense that whatever happened, your words aren't going to be enough to absolve him. For an android, this is a very human character. You can only hope he realizes you don't blame him and that you still need his help moving forward. With that settled and your companion relatively calm once more, he sets about helping you through the same stretches he used to get you out of bed last time. It is even more painful than the other day. It feels like someone removed every single joint in your body before dipping the rest of you in lead. You can't stop yourself from letting out a short screech when he attempts to coax you in a simple seated toe touch. He lets up, frowning. We appear to be facing a minor setback. I can restore you to the level of mobility you had 35 hours ago, but it will take some time, and you urgently need to replenish the calories you've lost. I'm afraid I will need to carry you again. You sigh, but acquiesce, knowing there isn't much choice. Silas spends the next few minutes carefully helping you to bend at the knees and waist, just enough, so that it won't hurt you to be carried. Satisfied, he bends and easily scoops you into his arms. There's no hope of holding on to him this time, so you just try to keep focused on keeping your head tucked against his chest as best you can. It turns out to be a very quiet morning. You find yourself too groggy to attempt any sort of conversation, and Silas doesn't volunteer any topics to get you started anyway. The two of you share a companionable silence as you struggle to choke down every morsel of food on your tray. Either the meal is slightly better than anything you've had so far, or you're so famished that it doesn't matter, because less than half an hour later you're done, and Silas is preparing to lift you for transport over to the fitness center. We will take our time and concentrate on working the stiffness out of your muscles. The two of you make your way into the next room, and Silas seats you upright in the center of a rubbery floor mat. Probably this rubbery floor mat right here. I wonder how they did this background. Do you think they 3D modeled it, or do you think somebody actually drew that? Either way, it looks really good. His touches are very gentle as he assists you into deeper stretches, always backing off immediately if you show any sign of discomfort. It takes a while to work through every muscle group, but you're in luck. For the first time since you found yourself on this ship, you feel actually fully rested. Do you feel limber enough to stand? Are you inviting me to make a dirty joke, Silas? What? I don't get it. I think because I don't get it, I want to pick it. I kind of want to see his reaction. Yes, I think I am. Use his outstretched arm for support. I'm not sure. I want to do this dialogue option. It may not go well. Your laughter draws a faint hint of a smile from the android. Not at all. Current technologies have only just led to the development of social sensitivity software. Humor is still a rather far-off concept. Oh, is that your way of saying my fabulous wit would be wasted on you? Quite. That's a shame, I'm really funny. Silas offers you a somewhat condescending nod. Yeah, sure, okay. But the light expression on his face allows you to imagine that it's just his way of teasing you right back. Yeah, okay, whatever, dude, you're real funny. I'm sure you are, miss. Slowly, you get one knee beneath you and shift your weight upward, partially onto Silas. His strong, solid form doesn't budge in the slightest, comforting you with its stability. Excellent. Take a moment to ground yourself. Once you feel balanced enough to shift your weight a little, that's not Silas speaking. Why am I using his voice? Once you feel balanced enough to shift your weight a little, Silas guides you through several slow, low-impact exercises. They're little more than rotations, really, designed to warm up the joints and loosen the muscles. In your condition, they're about all you can handle. You're panting a bit by the time you finish your final knee rotation, and Silas retrieves a glass of water for you. Water? What do you mean, water? Oh, I think I need to wash my water bottle because this tastes real funky. That should be enough for one day. I will assist you to the latrine so that you may shower. That should help with any lingering soreness. The thought of dousing yourself in hot water sounds fantastic, despite the fact that you suspect you won't be able to give yourself a very thorough cleansing. Sadly, having to scrub your own back is one major drawback of old-fashioned non-sonic showers. Non-sonic showers? That means we gotta go fast to preserve water. You console yourself with the reminder that you didn't sweat much at least. That was a weird tone to read that line, and let's reread that line. You console yourself with the reminder that you didn't sweat much, at least. Expecting Silas to present you with a choice on whether or not to march yourself back to your own cabin, you're blindsided a bit when he just gathers you up in his arms without a word. Forgive me, but I suspect you'll want to save what energy you have left for bathing. He guesses correctly that you'd rather avoid the awkwardness of having him help you through that. He carries you through the halls and into your small living quarters, depositing you inside the latrine. I will return after you finish, miss. Please don't hesitate to call if you need my assistance. There isn't much chance of that happening, but you nod just the same. You slip out of your uniform with some difficulty and take a hurried shower, partially to make use of your remaining strength before the day's exertions catch up to you, and partially to save water. The last of your grogginess drains away as you turn off the tap. It's a little odd to be so physically exhausted but have such mental clarity at the same time. As you move to brush your teeth, your thoughts turn back to the events of this morning. Now that you're able to think back on it, you can't help but feel worried Silas is malfunctioning in some way, a little scared that you had such a bad reaction to the medication, a bit of paranoia regarding Silas. I don't know. I feel like we should worry that he's malfunctioning because he saw that he thought so. So, like, him looking at himself and going, I am broken, kind of makes me go, maybe he is broken. You huff in frustration. Silas was forthcoming enough about how things went wrong with your negative reaction to the medication, but he's been irritatingly vague. He's been irritatingly vague so far as to the why. You reason to yourself that maybe he doesn't know either. If he's suffering from some sort of internal error, he might not be able to detect the cause. Briefly, you lament not being able to help him out with such a thing yourself, for your own sake as well as his. Maybe if we were a mechanical engineer, we could see what happened. Keep that in mind. Everybody take notes. All you can do is hope, as he's got a better handle on the situation now that he's once messed up already. You finish up your after-bath ritual in contemplative silence. Okay, real talk, I like these backgrounds a lot. If we run back to this latrine, it's really well designed. It kind of feels space agey and it's cool. And then this feels like a space quarters, you know, very sparse. You know, it's like a bed and a window so you can see space. This is really well designed. Inside the cabin, you jump, surprised to see that Silas is already there waiting for you. What are you doing? His brow furrows and he clasps something behind his back out of your sight. Uh-oh. I came to make sure you were all right, miss. He pauses before pointing out, I did say I would return. Right, of course you did. There's an uneasy beat of silence, and oddly enough, Silas is the one who breaks it. I take it that you'll be retiring soon, then. You're definitely feeling the muscle fatigue at this point, but in all honesty, you can't say that you feel all that sleepy. I'm not really all that tired. Is there anything to do on board to pass the time? Yes, yes, there's no need for you to say. There's no need for you to stay, rather. Yes, yes, there's no need for you to stay. Maybe later, but for now I wouldn't mind some company. Let's say that we're not really tired, because that's pretty accurate. Silas's blank look isn't very encouraging. His rigid stance shifts, and his hands remain behind his back, very clearly hiding something from your His rigid stance shifts, and his hands remain behind his back, still obviously hiding something from your gaze. What have you got there? He goes very still. His eyes meet yours in an expression that, on a human, would classify as uneasy, I suppose? On him, it practically screams of embarrassment. After a moment, he slowly withdraws the small bottle he's been holding out of view and shows you the label. Oh my! Silas, that is a bottle of massage oil. You turn, you blush, you flush deeply. You're here to offer me a massage? Laugh and give him a flirty wink. This is an excuse to put your hands on me, isn't it? I would definitely flush in this situation and go, ugh! So, yes. His left eyebrow jumps up at the squeaky register your voice reaches. You're here to offer me a massage? Yes. Without the benefits of pain medicine, I believe massage will be the best way to ease your sore muscles. It is only a suggestion, however. If you do not need my services, I will not impose them upon you. Okay, we got 3 reactions here. His well-reasoned offer helps you calm down and pleasantly surprise you accept. At the word services, oh boy, the room gets a little bit warmer. Lordy. Oh, okay. Thank you for the offer, Silas, but I'm really fine. I think I'll just go to bed. This one makes me chuckle a little bit, like, oh my, oh dear. I'm taking that one because it makes me chuckle. Still looking a bit nonplussed at your reaction, Silas. I mean, he does accept the reaction in silence. Still looking a bit nonplussed at your reaction, Silas acknowledges your acceptance with a stiff nod. I will return shortly with a towel. You should find a comfortable prone position on your bunk in the meantime. You follow his instructions, methodically unfastening your uniform and pulling your arms out of the sleeves. The loose fabric gathers beneath your chest as you lie down on the bed, bare from the waist up, and head turned to one side. Perhaps I shouldn't have chosen that dialogue option. Oh my. Regrets. While you wait, you can't help but wonder if he'll be as unaffected by your body as he was the first, or was it second time he saw you in the nude? When Silas returns, he frowns a bit. You do not intend to let me massage your legs? Well, we did a pretty good job stretching them already. My back and shoulders are the areas that are giving me the most trouble right now anyway. Or we may avoid a lewd. He continues to look dubious, but doesn't push and motions for you to scoot closer to the edge of the bed. Here. From this position, you can reach the muscle groups you mentioned from his seat on the mattress next to you. You hear him open the bottle of oil. You hear him open the bottle of oil next to you and rub his hands together. It is on the tip of his tongue. It is on the tip of your tongue to ask him if the oil isn't going to cause problems for him, but you don't get to, because the sensation of his slick fingers on your skin is very startling. You tense under his hands for a moment. I apologize. I should have warned you. Human skin is much more delicate and sensitive than anything else I work with. His long fingers glide over your back in slow, firm strokes as he speaks. Every knot he encounters loosens up gradually under his gentle ministrations. Where did this guy learn to do massage? Like, was that an included program? Yeah. You don't know whether or not there's some aspect of his programming that tells him how much pressure he can use without hurting you, but he manages to work through every kink with only the minimal amount of pain. Slowly, you feel your body go fluid. I will move up to your shoulders now. His voice is quiet and soothing, making you almost wish he'd keep up a steady stream of chatter so that you'd have something pleasant to listen to. I have steady stream of chatter. It's a shame there's no music. Where does a laborer class android learn to give a massage? That's my question. I just asked that, so we're doing that one. Your teasing tone falls a bit flat, given you're practically purring under his luxurious movements. I learned by observing the other crew members' interactions with each other. Being on the maintenance crew in particular was physically vigorous for humans. Enough that they would sometimes offer one another impromptu massages. I heard one of them mention oil as a necessity and the recipient should be lying down. You can't help wondering if what Silas overheard was really so innocent, or if it was a precursor to something more scandalous. The rest is extrapolation and analysis of information already stored in my memory banks. Satisfied that you've successfully managed to get Silas rambling, at least for a little while, you allow your eyes to drift shut, smiling a bit. His hands continue to work their magic over your shoulders and down your arms. Unlike a human, he never seems to tire. It isn't long before you find yourself fighting slumber, and the last thing you remember, besides the smooth, uninterrupted glide of his hands over your skin, is the tickle of hair across your neck. His fingers are gentle as they brush the strands out of his path, and you imagine that they linger a moment before resuming their activity. Your lips remain curled in a smile as you surrender to sleep. It takes nearly a week before you can move easily about on your own. As your sleep cycles grow shorter and regulate themselves, you find yourself wandering around more and more often, searching for things to occupy yourself with. Outside of your regularly scheduled meals, physical therapy sessions, and massages, Silas does not seek out your company. You feel rather disappointed by this. As silly as it sounds, you actually enjoy talking to him. Conflicted about it. He's not an ideal companion, but it gets pretty lonely up here. Relieved by this, you don't really fully trust him. Indifferent about it. It'd be nice to chat, but what's important is getting to safety. I don't know, she seems to be enjoying Silas's company, so I'd say conflicted about it because he's kind of becoming more human, and that's confusing. He alternates between hiding himself away in the navigation room and tinkering in the engine room, both places that you're forbidden to access. Although the word forbidden implies that you would face some form of penalty for venturing there, and you're fairly sure that there's nothing Silas could do to punish you. It's not as if he can physically hurt you. It would go against the directives that are included, by law, in every robotic entity's programming. Oh boy, Asimov's law here. He can't take any action that would limit or subvert any choice of yours, period, so long as you aren't putting yourself in danger. The worst you'd probably earn yourself is a stern lecture. But these are only stray thoughts, passing through a very bored mind. Still, your gaze lingers on the door to the navigation room in particular. It's the only area of the ship you haven't seen. Turn your attention elsewhere. The room is really none of your business. Or, wander over to the control panel, more out of curiosity than anything else. Yeah. Be curious. Because you reason that there's no harm in looking, since there's no way you can unlock it anyway. The panel is a simpler, older design that you aren't familiar with. Without even thinking about it, you reach out to tap the display lightly. There's Silas. What are you doing? You squeak in alarm as a firm, unforgiving hand suddenly clamps around your wrist. There's no need to look up to know that it's attached to a very irritated android. You glance up at him anyway, quailing just a bit at the hard glare he's giving you. I was just looking at the access panel. I wasn't trying to go in. Oh, hey, Silas. Fancy seeing you here. I was just hoping to take a quick look. I wouldn't have touched anything. Let's be truthful. That's what we were planning on doing. Perhaps I did not make this sufficiently clear to you when you first awoke. Only members of the maintenance crew are allowed past these doors. As you are most assuredly not a member of said crew, there is nothing beyond this point that you need concern yourself with. Resentment fills you at being spoken down to like this, regardless of whether you were in the wrong or not. Look, his grasp around your wrist tightens briefly. I thought that said waist, that's why I made that sound. It doesn't hurt, but it does serve to interrupt your thoughts. There is no conceivable benefit to you entering this room that would outweigh the consequences of what could happen if you were to accidentally mishandle any of the equipment. The slightest miscalculation could result in another collision or a course being altered beyond the scope of how long your rations will last. Do you understand? Even if the risk of something going wrong is minimal, I cannot allow you to endanger your life, no matter how slight a risk it is. You can't help the flare of irritated suspicion that sparks. Is he hiding something? Or, you swallow your defensive reaction and try to see things from his point of view. Or, nod reluctantly. You understand what he's saying, even if he is overreacting. I want one of these two bottom ones. I'm not sure which one, though. Yeah, let's pick the third one, because, yeah. You take a deep breath to calm yourself and think. His worries are not unfounded. Mistakes happen, and you knew you shouldn't have been anywhere near the off-limits area. Most importantly, you remind yourself that he's speaking out of concern for your welfare. Looking more closely, his expression doesn't seem angry so much as panicked. With that in mind, it's easier not to snap at him, even if it doesn't cool your temper completely. It's not like it caught you actively trying to break inside the room, after all. Oh, okay, I understand. I get that you're just doing your job, alright? It's difficult, but you try gamely for a smile. Human curiosity is not something I can really help, Silas. The effect your words have on him is immediate. It's sort of amazing to see him drop his gaze from yours, almost bashfully. I see. His voice is soft with thought as his eyes wander down to your forearm. He holds it in his grasp loosely. I said loosely, really weird. He holds it in his grasp loosely. You feel his hand shift slightly, and then the unmistakable brush of his thumb strokes along the inside of your wrist. Oh my. His touch is so light against the layer of fabric making up your uniform that you can almost convince yourself it was an accident. Until he does it again. Oh. This time he manages to find a patch of delicate skin at the edge of your sleeve. Oh my. You feel a surging tingle of static electricity travel up your arm, and the muscles leading away from your wrist flex automatically. Your breath rushes out in a low gasp. Oh my. Steam. It feels... Silas doesn't look up, instead studying the strain of your tendons with something akin to fascination. You can't seem to slow the excited... That would have been much more suave had I not interrupted myself in the middle of a sentence. You can't seem to slow the exciting pounding of your heart. I can't read this right in the voice I want. You can't seem to slow the excited pounding of your heartbeat. Silas? Jerk your arm away quickly. Your voice comes out on a shaky whisper. What are you doing? Yeah. He lets go of you, returning to his senses with a suddenness that makes it clear he intends to ignore his own reaction. You reel away a respectable distance, confused at the change until he speaks. Perhaps if you allow me to accompany you so that I may ensure you do not inadvertently damage anything, I could permit you entry. He trails off, and you feel your whole jaw go slack with surprise at this turn of events. To think that you might have just changed the mind of an android with a few words of agreement. Is it possible that he was won over by simple reverse psychology? Your body is still stiff with shock when he strides at the door of the navigation room and adroitly punches in the code that will grant you both entry. The door slides open with a gentle swish. After you, Miss Kindle. You force your feet to move, unwilling to waste this opportunity. The chamber is absolutely cavernous in size. Cavernous? Cavernous? The chamber is absolutely cavernous in size, and it takes you a moment to stop gaping. Silas follows you in on quiet feet. I don't know, man. Silas follows you in on quiet feet, beckoning you toward the large window that makes up most of the craft's bow. Someone is playing a Steam game right now, one of my Steam friends. Ahead, the view is a gorgeous spread of stars against the backdrop of vast, empty space. You crowd closer to the front of the ship to look out at it, aware that Silas has clasped his hands behind his back and taken up a position not far from you. There are countless colored dots on the horizon, sprinkled as far as your eye can see. Even as you watch, the skyscape slowly shifts as the ship's cruise... Wish I could speak English. Even as you watch, the skyscape slowly shifts as the ship cruises onward to your destination, leaving those billions of stars and planets behind. It is remarkable, isn't it? Silas breaks the silence with a musing quality of his voice. The navigational systems on board this craft are unrefined. I am obliged to correct the ship's steering at least once a day to ensure we remain on course. Because I'm forced to be here so often, I find myself watching the stars more than I do almost anything else, aside from assisting you, Miss Kindle. You make it sound so lonely. That seems like it'd get boring after a while. Couldn't you do something more productive with your time? I'm not saying that one. That one's mean. You make it sound so lonely. Really good choice. He looks a bit startled, though whether or not he agrees with your assessment is unclear at best. Loneliness is not a concept I understand very well, but I suppose it would seem that way to a human. I do not require company, but I find that yours is not objectionable. You shift your gaze over to him quickly, but he is steadfastly looking straight ahead, avoiding your eye. That's a cute CG. Look at. She's teaching him constellations and stuff. A comfortable silence descends over you, and as both the minutes and the stars pass by, you amuse yourself by drawing constellations before they disappear. You can't find any that you already know of due to the unfamiliar angle you're looking from, but that doesn't stop you from creating your own. It's surprisingly challenging. You use your finger to trace images that only you can see against the glass. What are you doing? You jump, having nearly forgotten he was there. Still, you can't help feeling a bit pleased that he seems interested enough to ask. I'm making constellations. He frowns, looking back out at the stretch of space ahead of you. Most of the stars I see would be impossible to view in a recognizable configuration from Earth. Another person is playing the same Steam game. I bet two of my Steam friends are, like, playing this game in a match somewhere. I don't know. Anyway, you shake your head, smiling a bit. No, I mean I'm making up my own. He doesn't offer you an answer right away, and you watch the shifting of his expression in the window. He looks strange. How whimsical of you. How human, you mean? That doesn't exactly sound like a compliment, you know. Oh, don't make that face. You can do it too. Come on. Let's encourage him. Such an activity is beyond my capabilities. His voice turns as remote and lifeless as the day it was His voice turns as remote and lifeless as it was the day you first met him. Such is an activity beyond my capabilities. Just rereading that line so it sounds a little better. The change is subtle, but you can't help picking up on it. Realizing how belatedly... The change is subtle, but you can't help picking up on it. Realizing belatedly how attuned you've become to this strangely emotive android. I was not programmed to find things that aren't there. He doesn't frown or do anything other than make a completely factual statement. And somehow it's the absence of unhappiness that really resonates with you the most. You want to comfort him but aren't sure what to do. Or reach out wordlessly and touch his hand. Or you shift uncomfortably, knowing that comfort is not your strong suit. Let's be not sure what to do. How does one offer comfort to an android? It's a question that you both appear to be stewing over as Silas meets your gaze with confused blue eyes. Are you trying to console me? I am appreciative, but your concern is unnecessary. He turns away from you, looking back toward the wide window and the stars beyond. I love when I misread things and I have to reread them. It's force a habit from when I did audiobooks. Whether or not it's because he feels uncomfortable with the increasingly emotional turn your conversation has taken, you don't know. To his credit, however, he doesn't ignore your overture. He simply speaks his next thought to your reflection instead of your face. It is unnecessary, because any enjoyment I would gain from such an activity would pale beside the gratification I already receive in watching you enjoy it. Aww. You feel yourself flush at his words. What do you mean? Does he realize what he's saying? You can only stare at him in shock. I feel like I should warn you. A lesser crow might take that the wrong way, Silas. Let's flush. He glances your way, raising a brow at your reaction, but thankfully doesn't comment on how red your face must be. You can't help it. His words are the closest thing to a compliment he's ever paid you, but you realize that he could mean them in a completely innocent, non-romantic way, so you wait for him to elaborate. He makes firm eye contact with you before continuing. I only mean that I already spend enough time with you. Hang on, let me read this and then I can look into the camera and give it a thing. I only mean that I already spend enough time observing the stars and planets that go by on my own. That was not good. I only mean that I already spend enough time observing the stars and planets that go by on my own. Can't not look at the words while I'm reading them. Beautiful. You being here, delighting in them, is the rarer, more interesting sight to me. As an android, Silas is not likely familiar with the phrase digging the hole deeper, but you sense that even if he knew how to explain himself further, he wouldn't. You let the subject drop for now, with a smile, I guess. The air between you feels a little more awkward than it did when he first invited you into the room, but it isn't an oppressive awkwardness. Neither of you attempts to make further conversation. Eventually, you decide that it's time to head back to your room, and Silas follows, watching furtively to make sure you don't touch anything on the way out. Peace. The nav room's door closes behind him with an electronic chime that signals the locking mechanism is once again in place. You can't help feeling that your time in here seemed cut short. Before you can begin to work out how soon you'll be able to convince Silas to allow you access again, he turns to you. If there is nothing else I can do for you, I will return to the engine room and resume work on your cryogenic pod. You blink. The suddenly placid way he's talking to you, as if the hour you just shared looking at the stars wasn't as profound or personal to him as it was to you, is perplexing to say the least. Perhaps he's still processing it himself. Perhaps he's still processing it. Perhaps he's still processing it himself? It's not as though he has any experience in these matters, and even humans can have trouble handling complex emotional thoughts occasionally. Before you can fully rationalize his behavior, he offers you a short bow. Have a good day then, miss. Oh, poor robot's panicking because we're close. With that, he makes for the opposite end of the hall. The distance between you seems much further than it should be after such an encounter. But you know that forcing a confrontation won't change that, so you let him go with a small sigh. The rest of the day passes slowly, and you're all too eager to return to your bunk to sleep and think. Maybe if you're lucky, the extra work Silas is putting into the pod will mean you can return to your cryosleep sooner than you thought. Trying to hang on to this encouraging thought, you let yourself drift to sleep. Several days pass, and you're pleased to discover that you've managed to get your sleep cycles consistently down to 12 hours or less. Your body is strong enough now to go about your daily routine without tiring, and Silas begins guiding you through the next stage of physical therapy, calisthenics. Lots of calisthenics. So much so that you actually look forward to the occasional jogging session on the gym's lone treadmill, just to take a break from struggling against your own body weight day after day. Aside from this longer, more arduous fitness routine, you still don't see much of Silas. It's been nearly a week since you joined him in the navigation room, and he seems even less inclined to socialize with you than before. Oh, I just dropped a bunch. My bitrate has dropped a ton. Oh gosh, what is problem? That is an issue. The more he avoids you, the more you find yourself dwelling on that last conversation you had. Let me save the game, because the bitrate just dropped to 0. Okay. Let me... Oh, nope. I think my ISP is angry at me for streaming. Just give me a moment. I'm gonna see if the internet actually works on my phone before we... Yeah, we're dropping frames like we mean it. The internet's still working for my phone, so maybe we just need to stop the stream and restart it. Yeah, we're dropping frames like we mean it, so I'll be right back. We're gonna try restarting the stream. Okay, question of the day. Do we still have a stream? Yeah, I just dropped a ton of... the internet just dropped off there for a minute. That was weird. That was really, really weird. I'm gonna keep going though, and if it drops again, then we'll be done. But I'm gonna keep going. The more he avoids you, the more you find yourself dwelling on that last conversation you had. Let me back up a couple lines in case it dropped for you guys earlier than I thought. Aside from this longer, more arduous fitness routine, you still don't see much of Silas. It's been nearly a week since you joined him in the navigation room, and he seems even less inclined to socialize with you than before. The more he avoids you, the more you find yourself dwelling on that last conversation you had. It was heavy to be sure, but nothing you would consider intrusive or unsettling. Unfortunately, however, you're only too aware of the differences in perspective between you. Whatever his reasons are for being upset, you suspect that you simply don't know enough about him yet to guess what they are. Silas interrupts your musings with a rare look of gratification. You wouldn't go so far as to call it a happy expression, but it's clear that he's pleased with you, or perhaps your progress. Yep, your progress has been satisfactory today, miss. I recommend 5 additional minutes of stretching to offset the muscle soreness you'll likely experience, and perhaps a warm compress. A little help? Your back gives a slightly worrisome twinge, and Silas obligingly assists you into a more comfortable position. Thanks, I'll get that compress after I take a break for some rations. His contented expression wavers and hardens a bit. The immediate use of a compress or hot bath would be much more effective at preventing delayed onset muscle. You can't help but laugh as his natural bossiness easily overpowers his good mood. A little stiffness won't kill me, Silas. Not eating, that might. He gives you a haughty look that only serves to make you giggle even harder. Your use of hyperbole is unnecessary. At least allow me to help you to the dispensary then.
You give in gracefully, realizing that he's probably only using the excuse to monitor your eating habits. You allow it, knowing that this presents a perfect opportunity to spend some more time with the reserved android. Once you've completely finished cooling down, Silas takes your hand in his to help you to his feet. Help you to his feet. Not at all your feet at all. He's helping himself to his own feet, pulling himself up by his bootstraps. Once you've completely finished cooling down, Silas takes your hand in his to help you to your feet. His bare fingers are very cool against yours, and his touch is almost excessively gentle. You are smiling again. He phrases the observation like a question. And you feel compelled to answer. It's okay to be a little rougher with me, Silas. I promise I won't break. Ooh. Or, sorry, that just tickled me for some reason. It was nothing. Or, yes, because you're holding Yes, because you're holding my hand like I'm a princess or something. It's adorable. I want to pick that one. I like this one. You smirk at the way his gaze skitters to the side, shy like a teenage boy. He's not blushing. You doubt if he even can blush, but his bashfulness is obvious and endearing even so. He does not let go of your hand, despite the fact that you both know you're perfectly capable of walking without the assistance. Silas leads you straight to a seat in the next room. Ooh. As you shift your tired muscles into the most comfortable position you can manage, he assembles a tray of food and brings it to you. I believe you'll find the nutritional content of this meal optimal. It must be. It barely even looks edible. Thanks, Silas. He favors you with a tiny smile. If there's nothing else, Miss Kindle, I should be getting back to work. Oh? You should stay and keep me company for a little while instead. Or, do you have to? Let's ask him if he has to. He pauses in the act of turning away before giving you an odd look. I suppose I do not have to, but in the interest of getting the cryopod repaired as soon as possible, I probably should. I'm sure it can wait another hour or two. Or, oh, right. Well, I guess that is a priority. I'll talk to you another time then. I'm sure it can wait another hour or two. Very well. You're pleasantly surprised at how readily he sits down next to you. Normally, if he feels strongly about a course of action, usually pertaining to your welfare, he doesn't hesitate to argue about it. Not willing to look a gift horse in the mouth, you decide not to question it. In the long pause that follows, the only sound in the room comes from your fork, scraping along the bottom of your tray as you take a few bites. Clearly, any conversation is obviously going to have to start with you. Shouldn't add words. Clearly, any conversation is going to have to start with you. Chewing, you try to organize your thoughts enough to decide what to ask him first. It's a little hard to think with him sitting there, silently watching you eat. So, what did you do before you were enlisted under the Spirit? You're making me self-conscious staring like that. Would it be alright if I asked you a few questions about being an android? Let's ask him a few questions about being an android. If you didn't know him as well as you do, you might have missed the very subtle narrowing of his eyes. Clearly your question offended him. When he answers, his voice sounds a bit tight, but still courteous. I did something with my thumb. One sec. Making sure it's not, gonna start bleeding all over the place. Yeah, it's fine. I just need to quit futzing with it. I've told you most of the generalities. What more would you like to know? You really don't want to talk about this, do you? Sorry, I should have been more specific. What did you do before the Spirit? Forget it. Maybe that plan to work on the cryopod was a good one after all. He's not gonna pick up on that, fine, because he's a robot. So, let's just say, yeah, you really don't want to talk about this. He used a very un-android-like sigh before fixing you with a level gaze. If you're simply seeking information about robotics, AI software development, or similar subjects, I would prefer you research that on your own. I have no desire to analyze what I am from that standpoint. He feels very strongly about this, you realize. May I ask why? Alright, I won't pry. Will you tell me about your life before the spirit, then? Fine, if you prefer the cryopod's company to mine, I won't stop you. It's really pressing that ask about life before the spirit, but I want to see why he doesn't want to be introspective. His spine stiffens, and his eyes glimmer coldly. You may, but I do not intend to answer. In fact, I believe it would be in our best interest if I were to curtail this discussion for today, and resume working on the cryogenic pod for you. Oh, we ticked him off. I'm sorry. He rises smoothly out of his seat before you can say another word, turning on his heel and striding for the door. Before leaving, he pauses in the threshold, looking back at you with a strangely intense gaze. I took the liberty of acquiring a datapad for you to use in your downtime. You will find it on your bunk when you return to your quarters. What? You acquired... You gape after him slightly, but don't have a chance to ask him where it came from before he turns the corner to disappear down the hall. You almost don't dare to believe it. Feeling more excited than you have in days, you bolt down the rest of your meal, barely tasting any of it. It's impossible to get to your cabin fast enough, and when you see the Why can't I say that? It's impossible to get to your cabin fast enough. And when you see the I just can't say shiny silver today. I don't know what the deal is. It's impossible to get to your cabin fast enough, and when you see the shiny silver datapad on top of your bed as promised, you gasp aloud. Absurdly, your eyes swim with tears. You don't know how he got one, or why he's only giving it to you now, but you set those questions aside for the moment. You pick it up gently, and wait for it to power up. This impossibly precious gift that your android has just bestowed upon you. Once it finishes going through the system startup, you eagerly navigate to the media settings and input your extranet address. Only to find your inbox flooded with digital mail from various family members and friends. Ooh. Message upon message of concern and love and fear for your safety. The outpouring of emotion is so strong you read each one while sobbing quietly. Best case scenario, you'd been hoping to contact them all in about 8 weeks. You clutch the datapad tightly to your chest and wonder if Silas realizes that in giving you this gift, he's basically saved your loved ones from 8 weeks of pain, uncertainty, and grief. Wipe your face and resolve to thank him later. You have tons of messages to answer. Or find him and hug him. Right now. We gotta go thank him right now. If we're emotional, he'll maybe pick up on how big of a deal it is. Or maybe he'll worry, I don't know. We gotta go hug him right now. Mind made up, you jump to your feet and sprint out of the room. Down the hall, you pound on the door to the engine room, calling his name until it opens to reveal a very bewildered android. Kindle, what are you... But you're not here for words. You couldn't be less interested in words. Oh, bow, You cut him off by throwing your arms all the way around his middle and hugging him for all you're worth. Thank you. Your companion is quiet for a long time, standing stiffly in your embrace, arms held out awkwardly as if he doesn't know quite what to do with them. Take pity on him and break off the hug, smiling. That's all I wanted to say. Snuggle closer. Relax, Silas. I'm not gonna bite you. Psst. This is the part where you put your hands on my waist and hug me back. Relax. I'm not gonna bite you. He's not gonna pick up on it, but he's still not loosening up to your satisfaction, and because you're right there pressed against him, you lift yourself up on your toes, pressing a light kiss to his cheek. Ooh. Silas is just shocked. Is just absolutely shocked. A tiny spark of electric current tingles your lips, and there's no other way to describe it. He melts under your affection. Oh my. His hands finally settle on your back, just above your waist. There's no pressure or weight on them. He's simply reciprocating your touch, reassuring you that while he may not know what to do, This is by no means an unwanted advance. You shift slightly in his... You shift slightly in his brain... One more. You shift slightly in his embrace, trying to get more comfortable. While there's certainly less give to his body than average humans, you'd still say that he's surprisingly huggable. He mumbles something absolutely incomprehensible into your hair, his arms tightening just a fraction. Right when you feel him to begin to unwind, he uses his grip to gently pull away and look down at you. He looks happy. You're welcome. The two of you stare at each other a bit awkwardly for a minute as you lower your arms. I should go and write some message to my family before I go to bed. Yes, that would be a sensible course of action. Oop! I dropped my mouse. After a strangely loaded pause, you both turn to head back to your respective areas of the ship, looking like a pair of shy, prepubescent children. You return to your cabin with a sigh, and a blush, apparently. Was that really just about gratitude? The answer doesn't seem very clear anymore. Not from your perspective, and you suspect his would be even more confusing. Not wanting to get caught up with it. Not wanting to get caught up in it when you really want to just bask in the good things that have happened to you today, you would turn your attention to the data pad on your bunk instead. You stay up late into the night, carefully sending replies to everyone you love, assuring them that you are en route to a safe place and you'll contact them again once you get there. It's tempting to stay awake long enough to receive word back from them, but you reluctantly put the small device away after nodding off a third time. It feels so wonderful to fall asleep without worry and stress clouding your mind for once. It's wonderful to feel so at peace. Time seems to move much faster for you now that you have a link to the rest of humanity. When you confront Silas about where he got the data pad, he's incredibly evasive. You suspect that he scavenged it from one of his dead former crewmates' belongings. This doesn't sit well with you. It's a bit too much like grave robbing for your taste. You feel guilty, but the reason the owner probably won't mind you using it. You're not sure why he'd hide it. It's not as if the previous owner needs it anymore. I'd say the reason that they wouldn't mind. You're only trying to stay in contact with your loved ones after all. Surely whoever owned it before couldn't begrudge you for that. You like to believe that if you'd been in their place and someone else had survived in yours, you wouldn't resent them for using the means they had available to tell their family that they were safe. The digital clock in the corner of your cabin tells you it's been a little over a week since The digital clock in the corner of your cabin tells you that it's been a little over a week since Silas gifted you the device. Although his work and your correspondences have kept you both relatively busy, you've managed to fall into a routine that has left you plenty of time to chat and spend time together. Instead of taking all your meals in the dispensary, you've developed a habit of sneaking your trays into the engine room where Silas allows you to sit on the floor while he tinkers. You balance the tray across your knees and nibble while chatting with him, intermittently, about anything that crosses your mind. The conversations help take your mind off the food, an almost necessary distraction, now that he has you eating an additional 300 calories a day as part of the final stage of preparations. He even invites you to the navigation room a few times more to stargaze. Always under his supervision, of course. You grow so accustomed to his company that when he pauses in the middle of telling a story one day, you don't expect the interruption to have to do with anything other than how close the two of you have accidentally drifted together. You realize that's been happening with increasing frequency. Final diagnostics are complete, Miss Kindle. The pod is ready for you to use. You freeze. It's not that you haven't been expecting this moment. You have. It just seems so soon. Honestly, with this newfound closeness between you and Silas, the idea of closing yourself off from him for a whole month just doesn't have the appeal it once did. especially since you have no clue what will happen to him when you reach Almathea. Your friendship doesn't seem likely to continue. He waits expectantly for your acknowledgement. Oh, you're done? So, tomorrow then? Already? Already, yeah. He expresses his confusion with slightly squinted eyes, a quirk he may or may not have picked up from you. Recalibrating the cryopod has taken me over 46 days. Even with our limited resources, I should have been able to complete the work in less time. Yet you are disappointed that it hasn't taken longer? Yes, to be honest, I was hoping that we could spend more time together. No, I was just asking for clarification. I'll be going under tomorrow then? I mean, I was thinking that I could maybe stay awake just a bit longer. Let's not beat around the bush. Tell him that we want to spend more time together. The expression that crosses his face deserves a stronger word than shocked. You imagine that for an android, appalled would be more accurate. That would be astronomically unwise. Your rations will only last so long, and should be preserved as much as possible in the event of an emergent. There's more than enough on board for me to make it the rest of the trip. Ask for the risks. You said yourself that we're only a month's distance from Amalthea. Maybe less. If we're careful, we shouldn't... I should not need to remind you of the fact that unforeseen events can always occur. He's angry. He hasn't spoken to you this harshly in weeks. The force of his sudden anger is surprising in its intensity, even more so when he finishes his thought. I will ensure that you are in that pod. By force, if I must. Can't really argue with that logic. Fine, you're right. I was being silly. Force? Whether or not I get into that pod is my decision, Silas. Yeah, we'd be indignant. And I don't want to go. Silas stares at you in mute disbelief, but you stand firm. You are not going to let him dictate your choices for you, especially when he uses such frightening words like force. His hands reach out, latching onto your arms in a firm grip. He's careful not to hurt you, but there's no squirming away as he gives you a slight shake. This course of action is beyond foolish. You are beyond foolish for considering it. Your lips press together in an angry scowl, but you can't deny it. He's right. You're stubborn. Yeah, but you don't deny it. Hang on. I read that wrong. It's going to drive me nuts if I don't fix it. Your lips press together in an angry scowl, but you don't deny it. At your stubborn refusal to speak, Silas mirrors your glare, shaking you once more for good measure. Why will you not make the choice that is clearly right? I do not understand, Kindle. The instant his voice reaches a loud enough volume, it seems to snap him out of his frustrated outburst. When he continues speaking, it's much softer. Make me understand. There's a trace of pleading in his voice that tugs at something inside you. You might have softened toward him in another scenario. You must see that this decision is only logical. He pauses, staring down at the way his own hands are grabbing you tightly. You can't help but notice he's looking at them as if they belong to a complete stranger. I do not wish to take your decisions away, but I cannot allow you to endanger yourself. His voice gives a very out-of-character tremble, and suddenly he clutches at his head with one hand as if in pain. My human safety protocols won't allow it. Do you understand? If I deem If I deem a human incapable of making rational decisions regarding their own safety, I am obliged to save them any way I can. I'm hardly making irrational decisions. I'm not actively harming myself. He's taking your choices away, regardless of how he's trying to justify it to himself. As if reading your mind, he meets your gaze directly, and you realize belatedly what he's trying to do. He's trying to communicate the turmoil and inner conflict he's feeling through eyes that were never meant to convey anything so complex. You can't see the emotions, but you can see the invisible effort he's making to show them, and that is powerful in its own right. Please, don't fight this. There's no doubt in your mind that he's begging you now. If he were capable of tears, you fully believe that he would shed them. You may feel as though your choices are being taken from you, but know that I never had any to begin with. Touch his face gently. I'm sorry, Silas, but if you try to force me in there, I'll fight it. Fine, just let me walk out of here like it was my choice. Let me pretend. That's all irrelevant. Wanting to make my own decisions does not make me irrational. Let's try to be understanding but truthful with this top one. I require clarification. His face works furiously, and you look on with anxious hope. Is he trying to find some kind of loophole in his programming? You aren't sure how AI works exactly, but you know that the more advanced the android, the more freedom they have to interpret her. You aren't sure how AI works exactly, but you know the more advanced the android, the more freedom they have to interpret their protocols as they see fit. Silas is not like any android you've met before. Surely he... Do you mean, by forcing you into the pod, I would not be able to restrain you without you struggling enough to risk causing yourself physical injury? Yes. You quickly agree, seeing the path he's on and helping him towards it. His shoulders slump in defeat. You hold your breath, wanting to believe you've won, but waiting to hear him confirm it. Then I will have to take the path of least resistance. I will not take any action that could harm you, even if I believe the odds of your survival would increase by doing so. Inside, you feel a rush of victory and can't help smiling a little bit. Your android obviously does not return it. Instead, he turns on his heel and leaves without another word. You let him go for now, recognizing that he might need time to decompress. Eventually, you make your way back to the cabin. When you reach the sanctuary of your bunk, you collapse on top of it with a tired huff. The weight of your encounter with Silas demands some thought, but you know thinking about it will only frustrate you. Your emotions still feel all over the place, and until you can sort them out, you decide that keeping some distance between yourself and your android is the best thing you can do. This is harder said than done. You attempt to distract yourself by sending some more updates to your family and friends, but your mind keeps drifting back to the somewhat impulsive decision you made not to use the cryopod. You're not sure if standing your ground with Silas was the right thing to do, but you don't exactly regret it either. Your thoughts turn over and over, hours into the night. It's a long time before you finally fall asleep. You last almost 48 hours before breaking down. A combination of boredom and the need for closure following that last conversation drives you to seek out your moody android as soon as you finish your breakfast and clean yourself up. I need to drink some water. I think I'm gonna have to bow out in about half an hour here, just because I don't want to overstrain my voice. As far as you know, he hasn't left the navigation room since the other day. You can't help but wonder what his plan is exactly. To hide away in there for the rest of the trip? It's absurd, and even worse, it undermines your original purpose, which was to spend more time with the stubborn idiot. Clearly, waiting for him to come to his senses and offer you apology is pointless. Even though he's the one with the problem. You're almost tempted to use the pod out of sheer frustration. Would sleeping the next month away in solitude be really that bad? You scoff. Being ignored by your surly robot friend is your only other option? Then probably not. The thought is best put aside for now anyway. You need to talk to him first, if for no other reason than the fact that you need him to get into the engine room. Mind made up, you make your way slowly down the hall. The door to the nav room is, of course, locked. Having gotten this far on impulse and not much else, you knock while trying not to think too hard about it. To his credit, he doesn't make you wait long. The door slides open after only a moment, leaving you to imagine him standing at the door, anxiously waiting for you to make... Wait, imagine, is he not there? The door slides open after only a moment, leaving you to imagine him staring at the door, anxiously waiting for you to make an appearance. Perhaps it's wishful thinking, but it could be that Perhaps it's wishful thinking, but it could be that he's just as ready to end the separation as you are. He meets your gaze hesitantly, and the sight of him standing right there, looking at you all of a sudden, flusters you a little. Yes. Lift your chin, say nothing, and gently push past him into the room. We need to talk, Silas. Hi, I just, thought we should talk about what happened the other day. I've thought about it, and I've decided you're right, I want to use the pod. I like this third option. It's very much what I would say. His nod is about a fraction of a second slower than normal. Yes, please come in. Instead of turning around and leading the way as he might have done in any other situation, Silas angles his body slightly so you can move past him through the door and into the room. It leaves you a bit off balance, causing you to fidget nervously as you reach the edge of the bridge and turn. His expression is guarded. When you open your mouth to speak, he raises his hand to stall you, obviously wanting to say his piece first. You watch him silently for a moment. I do not believe I was able to adequately express my dilemma the other day. It must have seemed like I was being domineering when I insisted you return to cryogenic sleep. The mechanism in his jaw is working in an odd way. From the outside, it looks like he's gritting his teeth against something unpleasant. I perceived that you were not making decisions in a logical manner. The thought that you would run the risk of a food shortage just to... He has trouble forming the words. To be with me. I could not allow it. You make it sound so frivolous when that wasn't even the main issue. You're such a guy, Silas. That's not what I was upset. It was stupid, but I might have changed my mind if you hadn't threatened me. Oh, dang it. We just dropped a bunch, and we... Oh, nope. We recovered. I was worried there for a second. You make it sound so frivolous when that wasn't even the main issue. The look of confusion on his face is gratifying. That's not the word I would have used, but okay. No? No, it wasn't. Regardless of whether my choice was impulsive or not very well thought out, you completely overreacted. In fact, I'd go so far as to say I probably would have changed my mind if you hadn't turned all male chauvinist on me. You halfway expect him to argue, or at least ask what gender has to do with any of this. But he merely turns his gaze to the side, avoiding eye contact with you. Rather than looking defensive, he seems to be taking your criticism directly to heart. It's nothing he hasn't already told himself, you realize. It was never my intent to frighten you. He turns his body slightly away, looking down at the navigation He reaches out to place a hand on it, running his fingers aimlessly across the largest stretch of empty space on the panel. The act is so at odds with his usual economy of movement that you immediately classify it as his way of fidgeting. No, that's a lie. I did intend to frighten you. My protocols demanded I use any means necessary to maximize your odds for survival. I tried to scare you into compliance, and while I cannot honestly say that I believe my actions were wrong, or that I could have done anything differently, I apologize if they hurt you, mentally or emotionally. You stare until even he, the unflappable android, feels obliged to make eye contact. You stare until even he, the unflappable android, feels obliged to make eye contact with you again. It's impossible to tell from his facial expression alone whether he's being genuine or not, but you can't imagine why he would claim to be sorry if he wasn't. Okay, I know that you were trying to protect me, so I accept your apology. Well, I guess I can give you points for not going through with it. You're forgiven then. I appreciate the apology, but I need time to decide how I feel about everything. I forgive you, but I need to know this isn't going to happen again, Silas. I think we should accept that he was trying to protect us, and it was just kind of like a thing. You know, he was kind of like trying to play chess a little bit, you know? He was like, I know that I need you to do this, so I'm going to do this thing even though I don't really want to. I tend to do that a lot, actually, for people who know me. Well, not a lot, just a noticeable amount. And I'm sorry if that upsets you. Let me know and I'll stop, or at least do my best to stop. I kind of relate to Silas a lot, you know? You feel you're supposed to do one thing, and you're kind of gritting your teeth in trying to go against it. I like this character. He doesn't look very comforted by your forgiveness. If anything, his countenance turns even more grim. You look up startled as your companion's entire body suddenly tenses. His handsome face twists into a somewhat stilted-looking scowl when he speaks. His voice is tight with strain. This is precisely part of the problem. His fingers stop moving against the console and tighten into a fist instead. A human man would understand your needs in this situation better than I. His icy eyes bore into yours as if daring you to contradict him. I am a machine. A malfunctioning one at that. I cannot care for you the way you desire me to. Your heart leaps into your throat at his words. Something about the way he hasn't looked away, eyes piercing you, freezing you in place, tells you that he's not just talking about needing or caring the way they've applied to your relationship in the past. You have no idea what kind of face you're making, but Silas softens a little at the sight of it. His own expression relaxes into a wistful sort of frown. His hand comes up shortly, surprising you, and hovers uncertainly in the air between your faces, just shy of your cheek. I was not made for this. Somehow his words manage to be an explanation, an apology, and a request all in one. When you don't move away, he takes it as permission to touch you, slowly extending his fingers in a way that gives you the means to retreat at any time. He cups your face in his hand with great care, as if he's afraid you might fall apart at any moment. His fingers are so long they curl comfortably over the sensitive shell of your ear. Fastidiously, he tucks a few strands of hair behind it in a move that is so painfully silly that you can't help but giving. Fastidiously, he tucks a few strands of hair behind it in a move that is so painfully silly that you can't help giving an audible sigh. He stops moving, palm warm and solid against your cheek. You are This is completely illogical. Frowning more deeply than ever, Silas watches you with an intense focus that looks almost pained. I am not made for this. He searches you, gazing over each of your features longingly until his attention settles on your mouth. So why do I want it?
Decision time.
Say nothing, just lean up swiftly, take charge, and kiss him. You keep trying to remind me what you are. Do you even still believe it yourself? If you want it, then take it. There's nothing stopping.
Oh, all three of these choices would be good choices. Wish there were more people in the chat to help me out here.
I don't want to take the lead because he's clearly just firmly conflicted on this, and like, if we take the lead, then maybe he'll further conflict and kind of like just constrict in on himself, I guess. 2 people just posted YouTube videos, that's cool. And I don't want to say this one because, like, now is not the time for existential crisis for Android Man. Like, calling his own sense of self into question in this situation is not going to get us what we've been aiming for out of this relationship for a while now. So, like, if you wanted to, just give him permission. Be like, dude, go. I'm fine with this. You can't You can't help feeling a bit flushed at the way he won't stop staring. He's watching your mouth as if he's adrift in a deep space vacuum, and your lips are pure life-giving oxygen. That's a really good, like, line. I dig it. I am no longer certain of anything. He leans towards you, close enough that you feel the faintest stir of his breath against your face. But no closer. His eyes lift to meet yours, and you realize what he's waiting for. Confirmation. The confirmation we just gave him a little bit ago. A final sign from you that this is alright, that you want this as much as he does. In reply, you take that last step, tentatively resting your hands against his broad chest and tilting your head to the side. His gaze scans over your half-closed eyes and upturned face, as if he's trying to calculate the best avenue of approach. You try to wait patiently. When he finally moves in to kiss you, it's only the softest, most innocent brushing of lips. And yet, you feel that startling rush of static electricity tingle through your skin again, similar to the way it felt when he grabbed your arm in the hall a couple weeks ago. It tickles, causing you to break away from him, softly giggling. You laugh all the harder at his look of mild irritation. That is not an appropriate reaction to being kissed, Kindle. He informs you... Oh, wait, he's completely deadpan. That is not an appropriate reaction to being kissed, Kindle. He informs you of this in a completely deadpan voice, clearly affecting indifference, even though his bottom lip is pursed out in an unmistakable pout. Sorry. What was that inflection? That was weird. Straightening out your expression, you bring him in closer by wrapping your arms around his neck. Want to try again? Oh my. He considers you seriously, and for a moment, you're afraid he's actually going to refuse. Yes, I will attempt to adjust. Oh, that's cute. He doesn't bother finishing his thought. He doesn't bother finishing his thought. Can't speak English today. He doesn't bother finishing his thought. Head already dipping down with the intent of kissing you again. His lips press firmly against yours this time, and the static... His lips press firmly against yours this time, and the static sensation is deeper, more penetrating. Odd choice of word, and definitely not tickling you in any way. It's a dull, persistent hum against your lips. It's a dull, persistent hum against your lips. Odd, but in a pleasant way. He retreats, allowing you to take exactly one gasping breath before he tilts his head and slants his mouth even more insistently across yours. The kiss deepens and you feel your knees shake alarmingly. Oh my. Thankfully, Silas appears fully cognizant of the danger. His solution is to take you in his arms, turn, and support you against the nearest solid object. You barely have time to cling to his shoulders before you find yourself being thoroughly kissed against the navigation panel. His lean body stretches out above yours, and the inexorable need to have him closer drives you to bury your fingers in his hair as you pull him forward with the other hand, clutching at his other... Dang it, I was doing so well with that line. His lean body stretches out above yours, and the inexorable need to have him closer drives you to bury your fingers in his hair as you pull him forward with the other hand, clutching at his upper back. Obliging you eagerly, Silas leans his weight against you, heavy and solid and male. Distantly, beyond the roaring sound of your own pulse, you hear something strange. Abruptly, he stiffened. Oh no! We did something to the nav panel and it's a bad. Before you have time to do more than glance up at him in confusion, Silas drags you back into a standing position. Your head spins slightly at the sudden shift. We must have accidentally disengaged the main engine. The words come out in rapid fire, his attention shifting so instantaneously to the panel in front of him that it's almost insulting. He quickly enlarges the holographic display and keys in a new sequence of commands. Your ears barely catch the low rumble of heavy machinery starting up right before something like a low-intensity earthquake rocks the entire ship. No! You keep your feet, largely thanks to Silas's steady presence in front of you. There. Should be back online shortly. There. They should be back online shortly. His posture slumps forward a bit as he hunches over the navigation panel in front of him. He's gonna regret it. He's gonna just regrets. He's hiding his face from you, but you don't need to actually see it to know that he's already beating himself up for the silly mistake. You aren't regretting this already, are you? Embrace him comfortingly from behind. I'm gonna say you aren't regretting this already because I was like, he's regret. His back straightens and he catches your hand reflexively before it slides off him. He lowers it gently but doesn't let go, even when he turns to face you with a surprised look in his eyes. Of course I do not. I'm not so changeable as that. You smile discreetly at the offended tone in his voice, but let him finish without interruption. No, it's simply that this has reminded me of the damage a single distraction can cause. We're fortunate it was only the main engine that got cut off. Next time we become careless, we may meet with a catastrophe similar to the Spirit. His words are harsh enough that you almost cringe away, but there's no accusation in them. He doesn't blame you for distracting him. If anything, he's looking at you with something dangerously close to affection right now. I do not say any of this to hurt you, however. On the contrary, it has made me realize that for the first time in my existence, I have something. Something that is mine. He looks you directly in his eye, and his meaning is clear, even if he might not be ready to declare it outright. Something I have no wish to even risk losing. Laugh to disguise the sudden urge you have to cry. Well, when you put it like that. Touched, you can barely speak through the sudden swelling of your throat. Right. Smile sadly and nod. Yeah, sudden swelling of the throat. You're like, right. I guess it's time then. He gives you a smile of such heart-melting fondness that it's hard to believe you ever considered him less than human. Hand in hand, the two of you leave the navigation room and make the long trek from one end of the ship to the other. Neither of you breaks the silence. You can't speak for him, but you're content to try and soak everything in for the last time. just in case your next wake-up is disorienting as the last one was. Shoutouts to that paper falling somewhere in my room. He lets go of you briefly to type in the code that opens the engine room's doors. With a gentle hand on your lower back, he walks you in, and the two of you make your way to the outside of the cryopod. By unspoken agreement, you stop at the base of the ladder, while he continues on to the control panel. You study Silas closely from this distance. This android, this man, has come to mean so much to you in so short a time. You can't shake the fear that this relatively brief separation is going to mess things up somehow. Oblivious to your thoughts, Silas busies himself with the cryopod's controls. As he gets everything prepared, you try to compose a suitable goodbye in your head with the time you have left. All too soon, the lid of the cryopod rises up, and the ladder extends with a soft mechanical whir. Your android turns to you with a soft, though otherwise inscrutable look. Are you ready? You aren't sure why he's making this sound so final, but it makes you feel even uneasier. Dismiss it as just being nervous. Yes, I'll see you when I wake up, Silas. You can't help blurting out. You'll be there when I wake up, right? The second one. He freezes, his eyes going a tiny bit wider before he's fully able to conceal his reaction. When he speaks, the careful, deliberate way that he chooses his words only increases your rising paranoia. I cannot guarantee that everything will be as it was before. You blanch, not quite sure what you're hearing. What? What's that supposed to mean? You glare at him, speaking perhaps a little louder than you intend to. You can't help it, though. Your nerves are too frayed at the moment to deal with any cryptic nonsense. This is not... I must... He cuts himself off, looking to the side with one fist clenched. The look of frustration in his eyes is one that you're becoming intimately familiar with. You must what? What must you do now? His stubborn silence is as worrisome as it is infuriating. There's obviously something more going on here that he doesn't want to tell you about, and it has something to do with you getting in that pod. You aren't sure how long the standoff continues, but you're forced to concede that in this one instance, Silas might actually be able to out-stubborn you. And you really don't want to be fighting with him these last few moments before you enter cryo sleep for a month. You've only just made up after all. Sighing, you extend the proverbial olive branch. I know that you can't predict the future, that you can't really promise that everything will be alright and that you'll be here when I wake up, but can you at least promise me that you'll do everything you possibly can to try to be here for me? Please. Your voice is trembling a little bit by the end of your request, but you know he hears every word. His continued refusal to look at you makes something in your chest feel heavier and heavier with each passing second. Silas? At the sound of his name, his head snaps back up and he finally returns your gaze. You immediately feel pinned there, under the weight of it. His eyes are so intensely blue, they almost hurt to look at, and his expression, you can only describe it as a look of surrender. Yes. His voice is barely audible. And unconsciously you take a step forward to hear him better. Yes, I will. I promise. He smiles at you and your breath catches. Thank you. Smiling back comes naturally, even though his answer only brings up more questions you're dying to ask him. This will have to be enough for now. With a tenderness that still surprises you, despite everything that's happened, Silas helps you onto the ladder. The gravity has been lowered, so you can climb in and let yourself drop safely. You nod, knowing with surety that Silas wouldn't let you use this thing if he wasn't 100% certain that it was safe. You tell yourself this, but the mouth of the open hatch is still a dark, intimidating thing. Once you are dangling by your fingertips, you inhale deeply to calm yourself and let go. The anti-gravity does its job to perfection, and you float gently downward until you reach the familiar platform at the bottom. You have just enough time to strap yourself in before the hatch begins to close overhead, slowly blocking out what little light you have left to see with. Silas is still out there, you reassure yourself, lying back as the platform moves into position. The hatch closes above you with a loud click, and you're suddenly surrounded by darkness. You hear the quiet, slightly alarming hiss of knockout gas being released inside the chamber, and attempt to calm your racing heart. Everything will be fine. You remind yourself of this, over and over. You chant the words, creating a mantra for yourself, even as the power of the drugs take hold and you slide helplessly into the void of unconsciousness. Some people are known to have extremely vivid dreams while cryosleeping. You are not one of those people. Your slumber is both deep and dreamless, ending on a gently tapering hum. She's awake. We're just in time, Hamar. Let me just open the hatch. Deja vu assaults you as a halo of light appears overhead. You gaze upward even though You gaze upward even though you know you're about to be blinded again. Hello? You don't recognize either of the male voices above you, but they both breathe out gusty sighs of relief. We got here as soon as we could, miss. Sorry it took so long. The older sounding of the two men explains, just before you hear the rattling of sturdy wood clacking together. We have a ladder here you can use if you're alright, miss. If you feel too weak to climb, just hold on and we'll pull you up. Eventually, you're lifted out of the cryopod for what you hope will be the last time. You can barely see the two strangers standing on top with you, but one of them helps you sit for a moment, while the other scribbles some notes on the datapad in his hands. Everything will be alright now, Miss Kindle. You've made it safely to Amalthea. Amalthea? Then where is... Kindle? A beautifully familiar voice calls your name, and it's all you can do to not break down in tears of relief. You're barely aware of it when 3 different sets of arms help you down from the top of the pod. One of your rescuers is speaking in the background, but you couldn't care less about what he's saying. All you care about is the fact that Silas is here, and he's okay, and you're okay. Oh, that's adorable. You are. You don't even let him finish. Instead, you practically take a flying leap into his arms. Whatever he was about to say couldn't have been more romantic than this, anyway. He catches you without difficulty, even swinging you a step, though whether it's out of delight in seeing you or purely your own momentum, you can't be sure. Either way, you throw your arms around his back and hold him as close as you physically can. You're losing the fight against your tears quickly and have to choke out some words, any words, before the power of speech abandon you completely. You made it seem like I was afraid that... You aren't even certain now what you were afraid of, but when you peek up at him from under your lashes, he nods understandingly. Rather than answer your half-formed question right away, he leans down until he can partially bury his face in a fall of your hair. The action is so openly The action is so openly. That's not how you say openly. The action is so openly affectionate it shocks you, despite how glad you are to see him. Did he really miss you that much? A month is a short enough time that you doubt it's just that. Seemingly content to ignore everyone else around you for the time being, Silas turns his head so that his mouth is centered directly above your ear. It's an action that clearly says his words for you and you alone. Please forgive me. You startle at that, pulling away a bit, as though his clinging posture prevents you from going far. I almost didn't make it back in time. What do you mean? Everything turned out fine. His arms loosen their grip around you, but he doesn't let go entirely. There's enough distance between you that you can see his face clearly now. He looks profoundly troubled. It's an expression he's been wearing far too often for your liking, and wanting to soothe him somehow, you lean up to press an answering kiss to his cheek. His response is to jerk away and then look immediately contrite at the face you make. Please do not. I must tell you what I've done first. He gives you back a soft, apologetic stroke with just enough hesitation that you guess it's an experimental endeavor for him, to comfort someone through touch. Once I've told you, then you may decide whether or not I deserve such a privilege. You note that even though he's rebuffed your affection, he still seems willing to demonstrate his affection for you. He hasn't stopped stroking your back, and he's leaning forward once more like he wants to nuzzle into the side of your face. Almost as if to reassure himself that you're really here. When he gathers his thoughts enough to speak again, his words are choppy and completely out of character as they spill out, seemingly without a filter. I did not wish to, but I had to. I had to leave your side. He admits this in a deeply shamed whisper that you have to strain to hear before rushing into a follow-up explanation, as if he's trying to preempt you from running away in horror. I had to leave you. It was the only way to save your life and still keep my promise. The journey took longer than I initially projected, and after we landed, the rescue parties had difficulty locating us. I feared that they would not reach us before your life support functions ceased, and because the emergency rations were damaged in the landing, you had to go out and find people. You had to go find one of the search parties and bring them here. You're following along so far, but the restless movement of his hands across your back tells you that there is still much more to this than you know. He shakes his head, and when the motion allows you to catch sight of his face, he looks nothing short of pained. I should not have done it. I should never have made you that irrational promise. It was in my power to all but guarantee your survival, but I forced myself to take foolish risks instead, simply because you asked of me. I asked? What are you talking about? You seem to be missing something vital, even though you can't grasp what. Silas's eyebrows remained furrowed even as the corners of his lips curve up in his own approximation of a rueful smile. It took me many weeks on the shuttle to come up with a viable method of repairing and recalibrating the cryopod, you know. Even when I had done all I could, the finished result was still imperfect, the life support functions in particular. I realized that I could extend their functionality by over 300% if I reconfigured the settings to accept a more modern, efficient power source. The only alternate power source available with our limited resources was mine. Clear, horrible realization floods through you, and your stomach churns at the thought of what he was almost willing to do to save your life. But I couldn't stop processing the audio-visual data I recorded when you asked me to promise to be here when you woke up. His blue eyes flashed to yours, and he's no longer smiling. I promised you I'd try everything possible to be here for you, and all I could think about was whether or not I was fulfilling the incredibly vague parameters of that statement. He shakes his head, and although you feel a bit guilty you inadvertently caused him so much stress, you know you'll never regret forcing him to make that promise. Especially since, conflict or not, he's still here with you now. I knew it might be dangerous to leave you here alone with your life support functionality losing power every minute, and knowing who disengage you, I knew I ran the risk of not returning with help in time. And I didn't dare take you out of the pod to wait without knowing for certain how long I'd be gone. You could have woken me up. You offered the suggestion half-heartedly and almost immediately regretted it. At the hard look he slants your way. Do you realize what sort of unthinkable choice it was? To decide between hypothetical deaths for you? Should I have woken you only for you to run out of what undamaged provision we had left and slowly starve to death before I returned? It took me 15 days to find help on foot, Kindle, and another 18 hours to return with them. I chose to leave you in cryosleep, knowing that if you expired before I returned, at least it would be peaceful and painless for you. His arms tighten around you like a cage, and he breathes harshly against your hair, burying his He breathes harshly against your hair, burying his face in it once more. When his voice reaches your ear, it's completely unrecognizable as belonging to the composed android you've grown to care for. It sounds harsh, heavy, and layered with brittle emotions you can't even put a name to. Never ask that of me again, Kindle. No robot should be able to produce sounds like this, and yet I require you to promise me this right now. Never put me in that position again. You managed to choke out a garbled response between tears. Doing otherwise is unthinkable. You can't imagine what you'd have done if your positions had been reversed. All you can do is be grateful. Grateful that he's alive, and so are you. He seems only marginally satisfied by your words. His breathing is almost back to its usual regularity, even if he refuses to lift his head or pull away from you. It still seems as if there is something else he needs to say. Perhaps the most important piece to the full puzzle? But do you know which part of this is the most troubling? The part that is baffling, even to me. Which part? I should not have been able to make that choice at all. In light of everything else he's confessed, this last statement could nearly be written off as an afterthought. But from the way his fingers are now clenching rhythmically against your back, you suspect it might be the key to this whole inner conflict. His movements are sporadic and awkward. You have difficulty recognizing them for what they are. A frantic search for comfort. He might not see himself as deserving of it, but his body seems to be instinctively seeking it out nonetheless. In response, you rub your own hands soothingly over his back. My human safety protocol should never have allowed me to make such a choice. By giving up my power source, I would have elevated the probability of your survival to 96.5%, even if it meant I would shut down, perhaps permanently. The idea of leaving you should have been eliminated from my thought process the instant I calculated the odds of success at less than 72%. It was part of my programming. You're stunned at this revelation. I am defective. Your first instinct is to recoil, to defend him fiercely against his own criticism, but then he lifts his head and kisses you, and you cease to think at all. Having forgotten absolutely nothing from your brief kiss over a month ago, Silas slants his mouth possessively over yours. The familiar electric charge tingles through you, this time running the length of your body, all the way down to your curling toes, as if Silas is marking every inch of you as his. He breaks away, and you are left so unbalanced that you forget he was in the middle of speaking until he opens his mouth to finish the thought. And I find myself caring less and less. You gape at him. It's impossible not to. For a robotic entity of any kind to disregard his cold. Beautiful. For a robotic entity of any kind to disregard his code, even with AI it shouldn't be possible. Not for something as universally fundamental as the human safety protocol, anyway. You look at Silas with new eyes. At your movement, he lifts his head as well, and you see some of your own awe and fascination being reflected back at you. The two of you stare at each other for several long minutes, simply drinking in one another, as if neither of you can believe the other exists. Because if an android can ignore its programming, what else can it do? Anything seems achievable. But how? Even as your mind scrambles for answers about why and how he was able to accomplish something so miraculous, a deep-seated part of you just wants to accept it. To accept that even in a universe of technology and wonder and exploration, there are still questions that may never be answered. See all this thought encapsulated in a single look from Silas. He looks at you with all the warmth and depth of emotion you're feeling in your own heart, synthetic body be damned. And he smiles before answering. Because I promised. Ending achieved. Do androids dream? That was a great ending. Wow. That was great. Oh my gosh. That was a wonderful experience. So, I need to be done because my voice is very particularly unhappy with me. But let me know if you guys want to go for more endings on this. I think I might want to try for a few endings myself. But I also have quite the list of visual novels to do, and I'm planning on streaming as much as I possibly can in the near future. I'm not really gonna set a schedule because then I'll feel bad when I miss it, and this and that. But I'm gonna work on a couple of like smaller assets that I wasn't thinking about when I was designing this layout, and see if I can. And I'm obviously gonna dig up more visual novels, but if you're watching this on the VOD, thank you for watching. That's like at least 3 hours of watch time that I really need because YouTube's kind of vomiting on its own feet. If you tuned in during the stream and didn't say anything in chat, thanks for showing up. You know, I didn't mind because I was really into this. Thanks for showing up, Jedi Proxy. That was really nice of you. Thanks for stopping by as much time as you had. So that's that, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and see you later.